to hear your word, that your word is a word that cannot lie. Your word is the truth, as it says. And Father, we want to hear the truth. We want to know the truth. You said if we continue in your word, we would know the truth, and the truth would make us free, and we'd be free from sin. And so, Father, we truly desire the freedom that you've called us to. We want to be at liberty, despite a world that is being enslaved. And currently, there is an enslavement system being set up, the system of Babylon. And Father, we're going to talk about this because this is all portrayed in your word. And we want to study your word today. We want to get your words into our heart, in our mind, and we want to discern between your kingdom and the kingdom that is here on the earth, so that we can truly have a clear choice of what choice we desire and what kingdom we choose to be a part of. And Father, I pray that each one here desires to be an ambassador of the kingdom of God. And I pray that in Jesus' name, amen. All right, now before I go on here, let me just unclick something here. I want to just shut down two things because otherwise they will make noise, and that is my Outlook and my Telegram. All right. Spitfire is requesting control of the screen. No, I don't know what's going on there, but no, we're gonna stop that, and it keeps popping up. So hopefully, no, we don't do that. Okay, guys, there's a problem here. I don't know who's is Spitfire 87. Is that somebody we know? Because otherwise, I'm gonna have to delete him from the room. He just keeps on. I thought that was James, but it's like he keeps asking for control of the screen, which he's not gonna get. Okay, let's get into this message here. The message is called "They Shall Be at His Steps," and I'm gonna just put the Bible up here just so everybody can see, because we want to understand this from the chapter that I'm actually quoting from, which is Daniel chapter 11. And if you read Daniel chapter 11, it talks about this man, this king that's going to go forth, and he's going to come like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, many ships, and he would enter into countries, pass over. And it says he shall enter the countries, enter the glorious land, and many countries would be overflowing, and these shall escape out of his hand, Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. And he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. And I'm going to talk about Egypt today. I'm going to share with you what these symbolize, that there's symbolism here. These three countries were actually countries that were not to be entered in by the Israelites when they came out of Egypt. Did you know that? I don't know if you know the study. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 4, Edom, Moab, and Ammon, right? But when they came out of Egypt, they says the land of Egypt shall not escape. I'll share with you more as to what that means, but it says this king shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and Ethiopians shall be at his step. Now, I don't know if you remember, but there was Joseph, who was in ancient Egypt, and he had power over all the gold and all the silver and all the food and other things like that. I'm going to share with you how this connects to Bible prophecy today, that there might be a counterfeit of Joseph here, a king who's going to have control over the food supply, over the money supply, and he's going to be in charge of a lot of these things. But it says the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. At his steps means they're going to be very similar to the time of Joseph, coming to his throne to bow down, to say, look, we need money, we need food, we need to live, we're dying. And so they would be begging him, they would be asking him for something. And so this is the title of the study, They Shall Be at His Steps. And you'll notice the steps here. This is the throne room, one of the throne rooms, where it's actually called Serpent's Hall. It's where the papacy sits in the throne. It's Serpent's Hall for a reason. I'll explain more. You can see a bigger picture of it right here. This is what it looks like. And down in the bottom is where the mouth of the serpent is. And you'll see this great big demon spirit, as you can see in this picture, sitting over. It looks like the tongue of the serpent, the demon spirit, the tongue. And it's interesting because the Bible talks about the tongue of the serpent. If you go to the book of Revelation, particularly Revelation chapter 12, I want you to notice here, it says that the serpent, verse 15, cast out of his mouth water as a flood. Now, just again, take a picture of what's happening here. What is this picture here? Out of his mouth is sitting none other than the papal power, none other than the prince of this world, the king of this world. And it's Satan's masterpiece. That is the papacy. But he shall cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman. So this is water. Water is symbolic of something. Jesus speaks, and when he speaks, his voice is as the voice of many waters. Water is a symbol of words or spirit. The spirit that I speak to you, or the words that I speak to you, sorry, these are spirit and these are life. Jesus said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. This spake he of the spirit. So the water, spirit, words that I speak are spirit. And so what's the devil casting out of his mouth? He's casting out of his mouth words that are lying words, deceptive words, deceiving words. And what is the power that he might be using to cast mouth, to speak? It's the papacy. The papacy shall speak. And it is the words of that old dragon. You'll see this also in Revelation 13, where we talk about the United States power, which is the apostate Protestant power, and he would speak like a dragon out of the mouth of the devil. But notice in verse 2, you'll notice that the beast, which is the papacy, which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. I'm going to share with you what these symbols mean, but the mouth is the mouth of a lion. It's how he speaks. And if most of you know prophecy, you understand the lion that is mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the dragon beast. Well, those are all mentioned right here. He's got the feet of a bear. He's got he looks like a leopard, which is the Greek power. These were symbols. They were symbols. The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom, Daniel 7:23. So these were kingdoms. And the one kingdom was the lion, the first kingdom, which was the kingdom of Babylon. So his mouth shall be as the mouth of a lion. He shall speak Babylonish. And Babylon, if you look up the word in the Hebrew, is the word Tebel, or the word Babel, which means babbling, confusion of tongues. And that's exactly how the devil deceives. He confuses the people. And this is what we're looking at today, is the kingdom of Babylon. But it says the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his great authority. This is none other than that old dragon, the serpent, mentioned in chapter 12, where we read in verse 9 that the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out in the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And do you think that there is not a world that is deceived right now? It is the whole world that is deceived, but not only the world, but also, for the most part, the professed churches of today. The churches that profess to be God's people. Now, how does he deceive? Well, the serpent casts out of his mouth water as a flood, the words that he uses to deceive. And he used this, and he casts it out after the woman. The woman is a symbol of the church, God's church, Jerusalem, the mother of us all, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And it says the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. We understand this to be having to do with America, the second beast coming up out of the earth, and he came up like a lamb. And then after a time, he spake like a dragon. So we see that the earth helped. There was speaking, liberty, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And America came up, helped the woman, and then eventually the dragon would come back, and the dragon is wroth with the woman, and he goes to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. You'll see this also in Revelation 16. You can see that there is 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Well, the beast being the papal power, the false prophet being the one that does signs and miracles and brings fire from heaven. This is, of course, that second beast, which makes an image to the first beast, or a copy of the papacy, which is apostate Protestant America. They're going to get power over the state. And so that is the false prophet. And then, of course, the mouth of the dragon, which is Satan and his angels. This is spiritualism. This is the spirits of devils. And you can see this in most religions in the world today, whether it's, you got the Wiccans, you got all these people that believe that we're going to be like God, or God lives inside of us, and we're God, really. And the reality is that, it comes from that ancient old serpent in the garden who said, ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil, you'll understand. So that was the devil, of course. And it's out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the false prophet, out of the mouth of the beast. It's the mouth that deceives, because it is the words that they speak, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles. And they go forth to the kings of the earth. And just so you know, if you look around right now in the world, the kings of the earth are the ones that are going to control the current events. They're the ones that are going to have a lot of things with regards to this, but it's going to be the papacy. It's going to be apostate Protestantism. It's going to be the false religions of the world that are all going to unite together, and they're all going to have the same mentality, and they're going to beg the kings of the earth to fix things. What do they need to fix? Well, let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation here so that we can get a better look at what they're going to fix. Let's go back here. Remember, Serpent's Hall. Okay, so out of the mouth of that old dragon, the serpent, that's the papal power speaking right there. And you can see his throne, and they shall be at his steps. Why are they going to be at his steps? That's what it says in Daniel chapter 11:43. And you'll notice these thrones. You look at this throne here, and you'll notice in this throne, he's got two angels on the side. That's very symbolic. It's very symbolic, like God sitting on his throne and the cherubs covering the throne. See, he sits in the place of God. And that's what it says in the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now, I want you to connect a few verses here, particularly to the book of Daniel chapter 11, because we're going to expound some things in the book of Daniel chapter 11 today. But without a proper understanding of a lot of these prophecies, you might be deceived in respect to, who these powers are. So I want to put them together. I want to help you put them together, and you can go study these yourselves. But in 2 Thessalonians 2, it tells you, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed. Now, who's Paul talking about here? Paul the apostle. He's talking about the man of sin. Who is the man of sin? Where is this man of sin ever mentioned? Well, the man of sin is mentioned in the book of Daniel. He's called the son of perdition, and it says, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now, when you're taking a look at some of these pictures, you kind of know this man is sitting in the temple of God. He's sitting in God's church, professing to be, or showing himself like he is God. He's sitting between the two cherubs, like God sits between the two cherubs. There's obviously, we can see prophecy fulfilled through the papacy, but I want you to connect these verses, because God wanted us to know, hey, look, don't be deceived by any means. There's someone who's going to come, because in the time of the Thessalonians, when Paul was preaching to them, they were thinking Jesus Christ was coming the next day. And Paul had to explain, no, the man of sin has to come first, which is mentioned in the book of Daniel. Now, let me go to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 11, and we're going to look at this man of sin that's mentioned that Paul was talking about. It's in verse 36. And he says, the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And he shall do marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Now you'll notice here that he shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods. What do you speak out of again? Right? The tongue, the mouth, right? Why do you think it's Serpent's Hall? Speaking. It's the Serpent's Hall because out of that tongue comes a bunch of deceptive things. He speaks against the God of gods. He sits on the throne, showing himself that he is God. so that he as God sits in the temple of God, right? It's obvious, but he speaks marvelous things against the God of gods. Now there's a parallel verse to this one as well, because remember, the book of Daniel is a repeat, an expansion of certain chapters. So every chapter is a repeat of something. So basically the papacy is the main character within this whole book, this man of sin that should be revealed, as Paul was talking about. In Daniel 7:25, we see the four powers: the lion, the bear, the leopard, the dragon. But near the end of Daniel 7, you'll see diverse beast in Daniel 7, right? But it has 10 horns. It's similar to the dragon. And it says here in Daniel 7:23 that he uproots the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom, which is going to be Rome. And he would devour the earth, break it into pieces. The 10 horns, which are the 10 divisions of this kingdom, as it divided and fell, are 10 kings that would arise, and another would rise after them, a little horn, and he would be different from the first. And this is the papacy, and he would subdue 3 kings. I'm going to come to this, and I want to share with you some things on this today. But he shall speak great words against the Most High. Where did we see this? He shall speak great words against the Most High. Where did we just see this? He shall speak marvelous things against the God of God. God of gods. Daniel 11:36. It's a passage verse. You can actually look at the references on these. If I was to click this verse here, you'll find that is a reference. Daniel 11:36 and 37, right there. He shall speak marvelous things against the God of God. He shall exalt himself, magnify himself above all that is called God. But you'll notice another verse that's actually linked here is 2 Thessalonians 2:4, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God. You see, even the people who are connecting the verses with regards to the references can understand that these verses are speaking of that same power. So that he as God sits in the temple. But this one says he shall speak great words against the Most High, shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. As most of you understand, you know that the papacy has changed God's Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. And no, it's not changed from a lunar Sabbath or nothing like that. There's no historical evidence of anything like that in the history of the world. And no, the Jews never had any conflict regarding a lunar Sabbath. There's nothing like that. But the truth is that he changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. They shall be given into his hand till a times, and dividing of time. That's another doctrine. Some of you may not know about it, but it's meant to lead people away from the truth of the Sabbath. It's not a truth. Now, I want to share with you a few things with regards to how this connects, especially with respect to Daniel chapter 11. We want to break down Daniel 11 today. This is an important chapter to understand. And it says, the World Economic Forum is telling us now is the time for the Great Reset. So the reason that I talk about this a lot for the Great Reset, now is the time. It's not coming later. It's here now. And so for some of you who are still saying, oh, there's a lot of things still to happen before we enter into this new economic system and before we enter into this new global shutdown and everything like that, I understand. Like, there could be another couple years or so. I understand that, but it's possible that there could be another week or another month or another, it could happen very, very quickly. The closing events would be rapid ones. And I would say that you just don't know, but don't put a lot of stock into this world being your world for the next 7 years. Do not believe something like that. Now is the time for the Great Reset. Listen, Yellen warns, this is Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, warns Congress Treasury may run out of cash as soon as June. Now, it might not happen. They might extend the debt. They've done it many times or whatever. But with respect to everything, the prices of everything is going to continue to go up. It's going to be crazier and crazier. But this is what we're being told, is that it's a potential that we could run out of cash maybe as soon as June, right? We've been told these things before. This has happened before. So, it's not necessarily saying that it's going to happen, but it could happen. And one day, these bankers are coming to collect, okay? The more that they put us in debt, the more that they up the debt, because you can't imagine somebody's in debt a certain amount, like millions of dollars, and they never able to pay it back. And you just keep giving them money, even though they can never pay you back, right? There's some day where you got to say, okay, enough's enough, right? payback time. How you want to pay me back? You know, you want to be my slave for the rest of your life? So that's what's going to happen, is that basically there's coming a time here where the debt is going to just say, okay, it's collection time. It's collection time. We're coming to collect. We own everything that you have. That's why we will say, welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. Well, the World Economic Forum, the bankers, the economic world leaders are going to collect. And when they collect, you will own nothing. And you will not be given more cash. They will not print more cash out of anything. That's it. And so the collection time is going to be you own nothing, the Great Reset. Now, when you think of a Great Reset, right, when you reset your computer, what has to happen before you reset it? Usually you have to shut it down. You shut it down and it resets. Now, with regards to the economy, there's going to be an economic reset. So what do you think is going to happen there with regards to the economy? They're going to shut it down. We're looking at a complete economic shutdown before we go into something new. They have to basically destroy the one before so that you have no cash. And then you say, oh, we have no cash. Oh, please give us your card. Give us your thing. Okay, here's your card. You know, just make sure you follow along with all the guidelines. Eat what we tell you to eat. Put in your body what we tell you to put in. It's Babylon's system. Remember Babylon? Let's just go to Babylon for a second. Just look at Babylon. Daniel chapter 1 now. We're going to look at Babylon. And if you remember the king of Babylon, what did the king of Babylon choose? He chose children in whom there was no blemish, right, to stand in the king's place. But what does the king do? The king appoints them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now, is it possible that there might be laws with respect to what you might eat, what you might drink, what you might put in your bodies? Is that coming? Is it possible that the devil has a choice menu for you? You know, there's only going to be a few people that are not going to go along with this, because you'll notice here that Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat. Now, for the most part, most Christians, most Adventists, most people in this world are going to go along with this. They're going to say, oh yeah, give me the card. I need the card because I got to eat. I'm going to die if I don't eat, right? So they're going to say, give me your digital ID card. I need one. And they're going to say, you know what? We'll eat the king's meat. We'll drink the king's drink. We'll take the king's this is why God's people need to be off the system completely. And sadly, you have to be completely dependent on God. And maybe when coming out of Egypt or coming out of Babylon, just maybe you might need to depend on him for a little bit of manna from heaven. You know, it's potentially the times that we're coming into. But continuing on, remember, you will own nothing, have no privacy. Life has never been better. Now, the Pope is pondering a universal basic income as the world economy withers. I know some of you have seen this before. We're going to go into this a little deeper here today. We want to look at this. Here's the Pope's prescription for resetting the global economy in response to COVID-19. So resetting. Who is the World Economic Forum turning to? Who are the New York Times turning to in regards to resetting the global economy in response to COVID-19? They're going to turn to the papacy, okay? This is why. It's very similar to what happened in ancient Egypt. Now, I want you to remember in ancient Egypt, when they were all starving, who did they have to turn to? And, you know, there was 7 lean cows, seven fat cows, and somebody had a dream, the Pharaoh, and they turned to the king of Egypt because they had no food and they had to go into the king of Egypt and get their food. This is very similar. The money ran out, the food ran out. They all had to go and beg this power. Now, this one power obviously was a religious power, was Joseph, and the other power was the secular power, which would be the king of Egypt. And very similar, we have a very similar message playing out before us, where he shall have power. And let's just go to Revelation or Daniel chapter 11. I want to go to Daniel 11 again. And I want you to notice something about Daniel 11. What does it say here? It says, he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. Why would they be at his steps? Because they're going to be begging him. We need food. We need money. The Ethiopians, the Libyans, of course, they're struggling. Look at Ethiopia right now. But anyways, it's not just a literal, there's a spiritual thing that God wants us to understand and see. But of course, you can see what's happening there. Is the papacy help them? But he shall stretch forth his hand upon the countries, the land of Egypt shall not escape. And so he's coming to get power over all the kingdoms. Very similar, like Joseph, he had power over the land of Egypt. He had power over the gold, power over the silver, power over the food to control the food. And then, of course, there's a system that comes with this. Let's go down there. So, resetting the global economy. Remember, they got to reset what? What do they got to reset? They got to reset the money. And when they reset, they got to shut it down and bring in the new one, which is going to be a central bank digital currency. Let's keep going here. Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum says the future is built by us, by a powerful community as you have here in this room. The future is built by us. Now, let me take you to Bible prophecy here just for a second. I want to just show you again ancient Babylon. Genesis chapter 11, the whole earth was of one language, one speech, and it came to pass, they journeyed from the east, they came into the land of Shinar, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime for mortar, and they said, go to, let us build. Let us build. And the word build is a key word in all this, but let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon all the face of the whole earth. And they had a name. It's Babylon. It's the kingdom of Babylon. And they say that they built this place. And remember, the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one. Isn't that what they want? One, unity, one, they shall be one. I can show you this in Revelation chapter 17. We'll look at this in a second. But they shall have one language. They begin to do, and now nothing shall be restrained from them, and they which have imagined to do, go to, let us go down there and confound their language, and they not understood one another's speech. Confusion reigned. So the Lord scattered them abroad upon the face of the whole earth, and they left off to build the city. Thereof the name of it is called Babel, or Babylon. So Babylon. Now, they shall be one. Let's go to the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 17. I'm connecting some of these things together, but what do we see here? We see this woman, upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. This, of course, again, is a reference to the papacy. And this woman was drunk with the blood of saints, the blood of martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I wondered in great admiration. Now, going down here, it says, the beast which thou sawest was and is not, shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. We're going to come back to this point here. But this beast that she rides is the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. And they worship him whose names are not written from the book of life. Now, here's the mind which has wisdom. 7 heads or 7 mountains upon which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. I'm not going to go over this because I've shared this before. If you want me to share at the end, I'm happy to explain it. If anybody asks the question, I'll be happy to share it. But I'm not going to share this right now. But the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Let's just look at this beast here. We want to consider this beast. This is the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. And it says, these have one mind, shall give their power and strength unto the beast, and these shall make war with the Lamb. The Lamb shall overcome them. So they're going to be one mind. These shall be one. Is this not very similar to what happened in ancient Babylon? When they were all of one mind, they won one accord, one language, one speech, right? It's a unity, but it's the threefold union of Babylon is very different. It's the papacy. And just notice here, I want you to notice this woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. This woman is an abominable woman, but you'll notice she is sitting upon a scarlet colored beast. Now, scarlet. If you look up the word scarlet, scarlet means red. It's red. It's a red beast, okay? And the reason that I need to make this point is because this is the same beast mentioned in Revelation 12, where you see in verse 2 and 3, it talks about this dragon. And what color was it? A great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns. The same beast right there. And his tail drew a third part of the stars, and the dragon stood before the woman, which is ready to be delivered. Why does he stand before? Because he's offering her power. He's saying, look, I can give you all the kingdoms of this world if you'll just bow down and worship me. Do you remember those words? Those were the words he spoke to Jesus when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness. And where is this woman? In the wilderness. So what do you think he's offering to this woman in the wilderness? The same thing he offered to Jesus when Jesus was in the wilderness. All these kingdoms will I give you. The dragon stood before the woman. The dragon has 10 horns. And the 10 horns are the 10 kings. And he gives her the kingdoms of the world. He's offering this. Let me go back to the book of Leviticus, and I'll come back here in a second. I'm connecting some things for you guys. I know some of you know this stuff. Some of you are new to a lot of this. But Leviticus 18 and let's go down here, verse 23. Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down there too. It is confusion. And the word there, confusion, is Tebel, which comes from the word Babel or Babylon. So a woman standing before a beast. Now I understand in Revelation 12, it says the beast stood before the woman. The dragon stood before the woman. The woman standing before a beast is Babylon. So who is the beast that stood before the woman? It's none other than the dragon, that old serpent, the devil and Satan, the red beast, the scarlet colored beast. And the reason I'm making a point here is because a lot of people believe that the beast that stood before the woman is the leopard-like beast of Revelation chapter 13. But that's wrong. Let's go to Revelation 13 for a sec. We'll notice something. Revelation 13:2, speaking of this beast, which is like a leopard. This is not a red beast here, okay, guys? This is not a scarlet-colored beast. Notice this beast is not the beast in which the woman sits upon in Revelation 17. This is not the scarlet beast. And I know I've reiterated this a couple times. I want this to be clear. But his feet were the feet of a bear, his mouth the mouth of a lion, and the dragon, here's the dragon right here, the red beast, the scarlet-colored beast. The scarlet-colored beast gives the papacy his power and his seat and his great authority. His seat and his great authority. I saw a woman take a seat upon a scarlet-colored beast. The dragon gives the papacy his seat. It's not the beast, the leopard-like beast. Is that clear? I hope that's clear to everybody, that what the beast here is in Revelation 17 is the red dragon. It's the dragon that we see. A woman sit upon a scarlet, the dragon, the red dragon. And that's who gives her her power, her seat, and her authority. It's none other than the papacy. Or the papacy is getting its power and authority from the dragon. Now this beast, again, I want you to notice he ascends out of the bottomless pit. Shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Now, why is this an important point? Well, Revelation 11 talks about this. And you'll notice that in Revelation 11, verse 8 or verse 7, it says, when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them. The beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. What beast is this talking about here? Again. So if we know from Revelation 17 who this beast is, what beast is this that we're looking at? This is none other than The dragon, exactly. It's Satan, the dragon, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, which is the beast in Revelation 12. The dragon, he shall make war against them. That's why it says in Revelation 12:17, what does it say? The dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. He's making war. So back to Revelation 11, verse 7. So the beast is going to make war against them and overcome them and kill them, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. Now, does anybody know what the great city is? Where's the great city? According to the Bible, give me a verse on the great city. Anybody have a verse on the great city that talks about the great city? Babylon. Exactly. It's Babylon. Revelation 17:16. I'll go to verse 18. The woman which you saw is that great city. Exactly. Which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Revelation 16, I think is verse 17 or 14. I can't remember. But it talks about the great city was divided into three parts. There's the dragon, the beast, and the spiritualism, right? The three powers, the threefold union. But it's divided, the threefold division here. But the threefold union, that is the great city, which is none other than great Babylon came and remembered. So when you're looking at Revelation 11, you let the Bible interpret itself. And I'm slowing down. I'm making some points. I'm understanding it so that you can see some of these points and catch these points when you're studying, because a lot of people have different ideas with respect to these things. And we want to let the Bible interpret itself. But their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. So let's just say it's the great city Babylon, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Altogether, Babylon, come out of Egypt, very similar message, okay? And that's why we're talking about and connecting a lot of these dots right now, because this is Daniel chapter 11. This is Daniel chapter 11. Look, I can connect all these things to Daniel 11. Watch what it says here. There was given me a reed like a rod. The angel stood saying, rise, measure the temple of God, the altar and them which worship therein. That's God's people, God's church, God's temple, God's sanctuary, the temple of God, right? Now, what did they do with the temple of God in the book of Daniel chapter 8? They tread the sanctuary underfoot. And you'll also see this in Daniel chapter 11, because Daniel 8 and 11 have very similar words. But it says, the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months, which is the holy city. What's the holy city? The holy city is Jerusalem. The holy city is the church. The holy city is the woman in the next chapter, which is the woman that was in the wilderness for 42 months, for 1,260 days. It's all mentioned in chapter 12. You see the connections here from chapter 11 to chapter 12, because chapter 11 mentions the 42 months. Chapter 12 repeats and expounds on the 42 months. Chapter 11 mentions the beast from the bottomless pit, the dragon. Chapter 12 repeats and expounds on the beast from the bottomless pit, the dragon. Chapter 11 mentions the holy city, which is the woman. Chapter 12 repeats and expands on the holy city, which is God's church, the remnant church, which is his seed, which is in the wilderness for 42 months, which the dragon makes war with. But all these little symbols God gives us. And why does he give us prophecy again? What is the purpose of prophecy? Prophecy is given so that you might take heed, so that you can take heed. Hey, look, you know what? There's a message here. Get out of the cities. Come out of Babylon. Flee out of Judea. Come out of Egypt. Get out before destruction comes, before the plagues fall, before these hard things happen to you. God gives you prophecy so that you can take heed. But if you don't understand prophecy, and it's like a light that shines in a dark place. You don't have the light, you're not going to be able to see. And that's not a good thing. Not a good thing. You want to be in an eye-seeing position. Jesus said, when you see the abomination that maketh desolate, know therefore and understand. Then when you have understanding, them that understand, flee out of Judea. Come out of her, my people. because there's going to be a troublous time such as never was. Matthew 21, 20, 24, 21, right? Time of trouble. So you want to understand this. This all connects to the book of Daniel chapter 11 and Daniel chapter 12. All of this connects together. And why am I going over this point? Because there are definitely some major misunderstandings with regards to Bible prophecy, and we want to be standing on the firm platform of truth. We don't want to be deceived in this last day. There's deception coming. So again, Klaus Schwab tells us the future is built by us, by a powerful community. Look at our power. Look at our might. I want to go back to the book of Daniel here for 1 second. And I'm bringing out a lot of things because I want you guys to see all this stuff and how it just is just history repeating itself. Daniel chapter 4. If you'll remember, the king was given a dream, but the king saw his kingdom. It says, "It is thou, O king, thou art grown, become strong, for thy greatness is grown, reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to the ends of the earth." So he realized, wow, what a kingdom that I've built, right? So anyways, he comes, Daniel gives him the kingdom. You're going to eat food with the beasts. You're going to realize that you are nothing. You're just, God is the one who rules ultimately, and he gave you your power. He gave you this. And so very similar, Klaus Schwab and the Pope and all these people who say, we're building back better. We're the builders of this kingdom. Well, listen here. Let's go down to Nebuchadnezzar's humiliation, verse 28. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon, and the king spake and said, "Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty?" What words were these? Well, these were words of pride. We build the kingdom of Babylon. We build it back, and we build back better. We build the best of the best. We're the best of the best. And while the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven. Ooh. "O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken. The kingdom is departed from me. O King Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon is fallen." There's a message right here. There's a message because it connects to the end of days. They're building a kingdom right now, which is the kingdom of Babylon, as mentioned in the book of Revelation. And so here we are with the same authorities and power saying, look at this kingdom which we have built by us powerful community, us powerful people, as you have here in this room, right? That's Klaus Schwab, of course, right? We are the builders of this kingdom. Now, the Vatican Task Force says millions are risking hunger problems during the pandemic, and they call for a creative solidarity to solve the global problems. So they've got a group, a task force, as you might see down here. And you see the purple here, that the problems that they want to solve are related to the economy. Of course, they want, a digital economy, employment, healthcare, protection of the environment, of course. And the task force was set up by Pope Francis. So Pope Francis set up a task force to deal with the global problems and solve the hunger problems and the economy. And so it says, to the influence, as it says in the green down there, to influence the formation of a new post-pandemic world order. New post-pandemic world order. New world order, I understand, new world order, but post-pandemic world order. New world post-pandemic world order. There is a new world order coming out of this. And let me just explain here. But just to read the last part, Human Development said that in one of the task force's recent meetings with Pope Francis, he asked us to prepare the future. In other words, we build the future. Francis said he asked to prepare the future, not prepare the future, that is prepare and anticipate it. In other words, you prepare it. You go and make it. You're the task force that builds. You build the future. And you build back better. In other words, right? Like this is, again, I want to just play this video just for you guys to hear a little bit of what these kings of the earth are saying in regards to this.
How do we build back better? To build back better or whatever. We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently, to build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
To my plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, written after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
Unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr.
IMF.
Biden's
I want you to
campaign
know
slogan,
keep
Build
that.
Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future.
United Nations.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy. Okay, so it is conspiracy. There is a conspiracy to build back better. Let's go on here. I want you just to notice that, remember that the Pope has set up a task force. And this task force set up by the Pope is to develop a new post-pandemic world order. In other words, we build the future and to strategize to build that future. And also a new economic system is coming with it because it's the Great Reset and they need to reset the economy. And the Pope has a prescription for resetting the economy because, as it says in Bible prophecy in Daniel chapter 11, which we've looked at here, and let's go down to verse 43. It says, he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and Ethiopians shall be at his steps. Of course, we're going to be begging, give us some money, give us some food, print more money, even though there's no food, right? But Revelation 13, if you understand the beast is the papacy, you also know, as it says there, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now, I could go on with 666 in 100 different ways, but the point being 666 has to do, I believe, with many things. There's a lot of things, but there is particularly the dragon, the beast. This system loves the number 666. They understand 666, like Bill Gates and Microsoft's patented a digital coin under the patent number 666. There is build back better. If you look at the words, they sometimes use 666 BBB and liken it to 666, a system. But who wants to help with this system is, of course, the kings of the earth. Kings of the earth like Klaus Schwab and others that are working together. Some of you might know Franklin Roosevelt. After they started printing money from nothing, well, Franklin Roosevelt in 1935 added this symbol onto the bill. And this symbol on it says Novus Ordo Seclorum underneath the pyramid with the all-seeing eye on it. And this all-seeing eye is a symbol of an illuminated eye. Illuminated. You can see the illumination around it. Some people would call these people that sit on the top of a pyramid the Illuminati or the illuminated ones. They see stuff that you can't see. And this, of course, this illuminated eye is the eye of Horus, or else the eye of Satan, as some might say. And it says at the bottom, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which means new world order or new order of an age, of the ages, right? The new world order. And so this is what has to come out of this, is that there has to be a great reset. And what do they have to reset? Well, they have to reset your dollar. And so ultimately, this plan has been a plan that has been in place for a long, long time. Long time. Now, 10 regions of the world, because in order to take over America, you have to destroy the Constitution. And the United Nations has planned this for a long time, and they've got 10 regions, 10 symbolic regions of the world, as it says in Bible prophecy, the 10 horns. shall have power 1 hour with the dragon. The 10 kings of the world, as it says in Revelation 17:12, kings of the earth. And of course, they've divided. The United Nations has mapped out the United States. They want to turn it into a slave planet. And all these yellow zones and red zones will be off limit to humans. They don't want people traveling through these areas. They will have people locked in cities, controlled by AI and other things like that. Now, Cashless Society, Australian banks are going cashless. We've already talked about that.
We've taken another step towards.
I'm not going to play that video, but are you ready to go cashless? This is all around us right now. That everywhere you go, they're talking about this cashless society and this new CBDC, central bank digital currency, which of course was just released. I shared with you last month on April 20th, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which wants to, of course, build back better. You saw the main speaker of the IMF in that video we just read. They want to build back better. And they announced the launch of a universal monetary unit called Unicoin. And Unicoin is the new digital reserve currency you never heard of. So we've got all these other coins like Bitcoin and other things. But with respect to the Unicoin has nothing to back it. And, if the dollar drops in regards to, if it just goes off the map, the US dollar or whatever, how much is your Bitcoin worth then? Well, you could be worth $1 million US, but it's worth nothing. It's the same thing. It's all digital. And if they control the internet and they give you a card to get on the internet, how much is your Bitcoin going to be worth then? If you can't get on the internet to get your Bitcoin, right? What about Unicoin? The new digital reserve currency you never heard of. They can print as much Unicoin as they want. They can give themselves billions and billions of Unicoin so they own everything. And then they'll say, here's 100 Unicoin for you. Here's 100 Unicoin for you and all you, but we get billions of Unicoin, right? Like, they can print as much. The bankers, that's what happens when the bankers print their own money. And so they control everything and you have nothing. And as it says, no man will buy or sell save he that has the mark. And going back to Daniel 11:43, he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, over all the precious things of Egypt. Very similar to Joseph in the time when the money failed. In the time of Joseph's day, the money failed. Actually, there's a verse on that in the book of Genesis 47. But Pope Francis calls for global COVID-19 recovery plan message to World Bank and IMF. And we've talked about this a little bit with regards to the IMF leaders, like the IMF managing director, Kristalina Georgieva. And she's talking about, the questions regarding this new global economy. Who has the answers? Let's turn to the Pope. Very similar to, we turn to Joseph. This is a counterfeit of Joseph, of course. It's a counterfeit Egypt. And there's a coming out that God's people are needing to do at this time, because you do not want to be under this system here. Central bank digital currencies for financial inclusion, risks and rewards. In other words, they will exclude certain people. We can include people and we can exclude people. Oh, you don't want to get your 56 booster shot? Oh, okay. So sorry, you won't be able to renew you'll be excluded from this economy here. Sorry, you will have no place to live, no place to sell, but we do have a place we can send you, which is a prison camp or whatever, where we can force you to take these things or whatever, right? But the IMF chief financial inclusion, I just want to share with you.
Information provision that covers for people how not using cash is better to protect yourself against crime, and how if you use digital money, you can graduate from payments to credit. And that, of course, enhances financial inclusion.
Yeah, a graduated system. That's like China, right? And not just that, but listen.
Me, on giving you an image and then outlining 3 priorities for CBDCs to help. Here is the image. We have been
this is prophetic.
This last couple of days of the difficult time we are in that our world economy is like a ship in choppy waters. Well, the image we can add to it is thinking of CBDCs as being a new fleet of ships.
Wow. This is, again, I'm going to share with you again, and I've shared with you some of this, but I want to share with you again. I want you to get the point here that it says that this king of the north will come like a whirlwind with chariots, with horsemen, and with a fleet of ships, many ships. So the king of the north, let's just analyze this from Bible prophecy here for a second. And then we're going to break down the many ships, a fleet of ships, and how this all has to do with a new economic system. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and how this all connects, because this is all Bible prophecy. This is the final chapter. This is the final verses just before, at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince. At that time shall Michael stand up, and there shall be a time of trouble, troublous times, such as never was since there was a nation, even in that time. There is a troublous time coming. So why is this important? Because there's a time of trouble about to follow this, okay? This is what we're about to enter into. When this comes to pass, this is where we're about to go, is a time of trouble. But I want you to catch this with a fleet of many ships. And I know a lot of people are missing prophecy. I'm going to talk about this in a second. People are missing out on prophecy because they have ideas in their mind regarding prophecy that are not true. Now, I want to share with you the king of the north. We let the Bible interpret itself, right, guys? We don't just come up with our own interpretation of who this is. But I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah for 1 second. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 7. What does it say? It says, the lion, and we know the lion to be Babylon, we've done the studies, is come up from his thicket and is the destroyer of the Gentiles. That's not private interpretation. That's Daniel 7, right? It's obvious. The lion is Babylon. He is gone forth from his place to make the whole land desolate, and thy cities shall be laid waste and without an inhabitant. He's coming. This is all prophecy that had to do with the end of time as well. I know if you read Jeremiah chapter 4 and chapter 6 as well, you'll see it all points to the end of time. But it says in verse 13, behold, he shall come up as clouds, and with his chariots shall be as a whirlwind. His horses are swifter than eagles. Woe unto us, for we are spoiled. So he shall come like a whirlwind with chariots. Well, what about the horsemen and ships, right? We know horsemen and ships. It says in Daniel 11:43, the king of the north. But this king here is coming, as it says, I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. What kingdom was coming out of the north that destroyed Jerusalem in ancient times? It was none other than Babylon. Jeremiah saw the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, come and destroy the kingdom. Now in chapter 6, it says, oh, ye children of Benjamin, gather yourselves to flee out of the midst of Jerusalem. Now, do we have a message similar to this at the end of the world? Does anybody know of a message where somebody talks about fleeing out of Judea? Flee out of Judea? Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet. So where does this connect to? This doesn't just connect to Matthew 24. It also connects to the book of Daniel. When you see this, know therefore and understand. And then it says, blow the trumpet in Tacoma, set up a sign of fire in Bethakram, for evil appeareth out of the north. Who's the king of the north here again? Who's this king of the north? It's Babylon. This is Babylon coming from the north. Okay? So my point here is that there is a different interpretation of this prophecy. I'm going to share with you what it is, but it's obvious who this king is of the north, as mentioned in the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 11. It is none other than the papacy. So this again connects. What does this connect to? It connects to Matthew chapter 24:15. What does Matthew 24:15 connect to? Matthew 24:15 connects to Daniel and the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. So therefore, the king of the north, this king of the north in Daniel is Babylon. That's the Bible. The Bible's telling you this. I'm not giving you a private interpretation. I'm telling you what the Bible says. Okay, I'm letting the Bible interpret itself. No private interpretation. I'm going to share with you some private interpretation. And sadly, I know some regard this as like infallible truth, but it's not. And I'll share with you why it's not, why it was fallible, why it was mixed up, why it was a message that was mixed up. But remember, what is she saying there? A fleet of ships is coming. Now I want to share with you the interpretation of a fleet of ships. A fleet of ships. There's a lot of stuff I could share from Jeremiah and Ezekiel with regards to ships, but I'm not going to. I want to go to the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 18. Now you'll notice here, he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. She's become a habitation of devils. So what is the call, right? There's something here. It says the merchants are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. The merchants. How do the merchants get rich? By Babylon. Who is Babylon? The king of the north, right? But how do the merchants get rich? From the papacy. The papacy. That's what it says. They use the papacy. They use her. They don't love her. They hate her. They hate the whore, but they use her as the whore, a harlot. So I heard another voice out of heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partaker of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Now he says, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double under her cup according to her works. In the cup she is filled to her double. So plagues are coming, destruction's coming, because she's fornicating with the kings of the earth. Church and state. Come out of her. When you see this, come out of her. Get out of the cities. Get out of Babylon. Get out of Judea. Get out of whatever cities that you're in. Understand that the plagues are about to fall, okay? Whether it's from fluoridated water or from poisoned food or from your 57th booster or whatever it is, okay? That there's plagues that are coming. Trust me, the people are starting to fall. People are starting to die. Now, it says she sits a queen and then no widow and she'll see no sorrow. Wow. Does anybody see this right now? Is anybody seeing these words? Like these words should give you shivers. These words should make the hairs on your arms stand up. But listen, therefore shall her plagues come in one day. Death. Anybody seeing death coming now? Mourning. You think there's going to be a lot of mourning for daughters and sons and children, and famine. You think there's not going to be starvation coming right now? Are they not crying and worried about what's about to come with regards to famine and saying, look, there's obvious famine coming. We're doing a great reset. And she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her. Jesus is coming very, very, very soon. Okay. Now the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. She shall be burnt with fire. That's the judgment for playing the harlot, church and state. But standing afar off for fear of her torment, saying, alas, that great city. Remember the great city, right? That mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Okay, let's just stop right here for a second. No man buyeth their merchandise. Okay, we have a time where it's coming where no man might buy or sell. We have a time where it's coming there. You have power over the gold and the silver and everything like that. But then no man is going to be able to buy her merchandise anymore. Why? Well, she's coming with, let's just listen, ships. Remember? A fleet of ships. So it says the merchandise of gold and silver. Remember, she has power. The king of the north has power over the gold and silver. The papacy. I know some people, I'm going to share with you what the other interpretation is here shortly. I want you to discern that interpretation as error. But she shall have power over the gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple, silk, scarlet, dye, wood, all vessels, etc. I'm going to go past this a little bit. And souls of men and slaves and chariots and horses and ships. Chariots, horsemen. Do you guys catch that right there? What does that remind you of? He shall come with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. Daniel 11, verse 40. The king of the north shall come with chariots, with horsemen, and many ships. Here, let's get to the ships. Let's keep going. The fruits of thy soul lusted after they departed from thee, and all things that were good and dainty departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, the great city, right? Revelation 11, we learned, that he shall be crucified in the great city, which is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. It is clothed in fine linen, purple, scarlet, decked with gold, precious stones, and pearls. That's the woman, that great city. For in 1 hour so riches come to naught. So your money has come to nothing. And what does it say? Every shipmaster. The fleet of ships, right here, and all the company in the ships, and all the sailors, and as many as buy and sell, trade by sea, the new economy, the new economic system, the great reset. They stood afar off. And they cried when they saw the smoke of her burning. You know how many people are going to burn down the cities and think that they're doing something like, because the kings of the earth, because of what the kings of the earth have done, you know what they do when they get mad? They burn their own cities. They burn their own grocery stores. Some of you have seen Black Lives Matter. You understand what these people do, right? That when the money fails and when all the food fails, they burn down their own houses. They're not like there's something wrong with our society, but yes, this is what they do. So what are the great merchants of the earth going to do when all this happens? They're going to be crying. They're going to be crying. But God told you so, right? God told you so. And saying, what is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were we made rich, and all that had ships in the sea. This great sea, this fleet of ships, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over you, thou heaven, and ye apostles and holy prophets, for God hath avenged her on you. You honor. You know what time it is right now? It's the time of God's vengeance, because these people are murdering people by the millions. People are suffering in pain. Do you know what time it is? Some people would say, well, why would he destroy the earth? Because it's just continuing in continual sorrow and destruction. You're destroying more and more people. So when you see this destruction, you might say, there's a time to weep and mourn, but I understand that there's a time also to rejoice, because there's going to be no more pain, no more suffering, no more death, no more mourning. And there's coming a time where we can rejoice that it's the end of it all. And God has avenged you on her. But just as you can see here, you see the ships, okay? And this all connects, because you go to chapter, it says she is made desolate. Now let's go to chapter 17. I want to connect you with a few verses again. It says, the 10 horns, which are the kings of the earth, which you saw upon the beast, she shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate. Jesus said, watch for the abomination that maketh desolate. What is the abomination that makes desolate? The 10 horns. The kings of the earth, church and state union. When you see this church and state union come out of her, my people, because their plagues are about to fall, she's been made desolate. The Spirit of God is gone. It's not in those things. This is a spirit. This is a demonic system. It's full of unclean birds. It's full of demonic spirits. This is Babylon. And there's a call to come out of her. Now, let's keep on going here. Remember, fleet of ships. Catching all this. I know I'm taking some time today. I hope you guys stick around for this. You don't want to leave early. This is an important message. God's people need to understand the things that are happening and coming to pass right now. Just listen carefully to this video here.
One example in China, because I personally...
China is the example for the IMF,
those transaction data,
the International Monetary Fund,
can be utilized by service providers in credit underwriting,
monitoring,
in the sense that,
buying and selling.
Those transaction data in terms of how many coffee I drink every day, where I buy coffee, do I use Uber every day, and what kind of working hours I have. Those non-traditional data can be very useful for financial service providers to give me a credit score. And based on a credit score, the financial service provider give me a credit line without any face-to-face due diligence.
Yeah. So credit scores, credit lines, credit everything. And you know what? Yeah, if you don't go along, we don't approve you. Oh, like again, you want to make sure you're up on your boosters. And when you get this credit card that you all want, right? Like we all know that this system is not for us as God's people. And this system is about to fall, and this system is about to burn. And it's not going to work. You're going to see the cities burning. You're going to see the smoke of her burning. And many are going to bewail. Many are going to beg the papacy. They're going to be at his steps, begging for gold, begging for silver, begging for food, begging for money, because the famine has come, the starvation has come. But again, they've got it all ready to come out and roll out. They think that they're going to rule for a long time, but the Bible says they rule for an hour, a very short space, it says.
We're developing through technology an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? Individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Yeah, working on. We've got a carbon footprint tracker for you. We're going to track everything you eat, everything you drink, where you go, how much gas you get, what you buy. Everything is going to be tracked. And so if you're not going along with the system, we'll shut down your card. And that's what it's for, control, so that no man might buy or sell, save he that has the mark or the name or the number of the beast. This is the system that's coming. Now, Pope calls for transformation of the economy for the common good. That's the system that we've been talking about in Daniel chapter 11. And then remember, this is what they told us already, that it's the new post-pandemic world order, because they needed the right crisis. As David Rockefeller said, all we need is the right major crisis, a pandemic, for the world order. And the nations will accept the new world order. The bankers knew what they had to do. They had to create a crisis. And they've got a post-pandemic world order. The pandemic was the crisis that they needed to destroy the economy. And then they could bring in the Great Reset, which is reset of the economy. And of course, the Pope has the prescription for this, working together with the IMF, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and all together as one, the merchants of the earth, working together with the papacy, as it says in Revelation chapter 18, coming with a fleet of ships and with horsemen and with armies to make war. I want to go back to this. I'm going to share with you a little bit more on this. I want to share some more Bible prophecy today. But the Pope calls for new economic model to rebuild post-coronavirus world, right? New economic world order. Vatican conference seeks solutions to food security caused by conflict. The workshop, they're using the United Nations and the agricultural organization that they have for the Food and Agricultural Organization. They're working together in a digital economy for the common good. We've passed a few of these, but Pope to World Food Forum, eradicate hunger with the spirit of fraternity, brotherly love. That's how we're going to eradicate hunger. The papacy, of course, acting like he's the one that's bringing this message of brotherly love, and it's such a counterfeit. Fratelli Tutti, that was the name of his encyclical, which was basically, if you look at it, it's about brotherly love. That's what it means, Fratelli Tutti. And of course, Joseph and his brothers, do you remember coming together with his brothers? The papal wounds being healed, as it says in Revelation 13, that they are all coming together, and there's a new economic system. And of course, he even likens himself to Joseph in Bible prophecy. Listen to this. So listen carefully to what he has to say here. When they were starving from hunger, Joseph's brothers, they went to Egypt to buy so they could eat. They had money, but they couldn't eat the money. Let's just stop right here. Consider that, okay? So he likens himself to Joseph. And he says the brothers had no money, so they came back to Joseph. So who is all these counterfeit churches coming back to? They're coming back to the papacy. They're all joining together with the papacy. And guess who they're going to beg for the next meal? The papacy, the papal power. And why is a lot of people going to suffer in this time? Because they failed to take heed. They failed to understand the prophecies that are coming to pass. As Jesus said, prophecy is given for you to take heed. And he said, Revelation 17 says the 10 horns make her desolate, and she is the mother of abominations, and that there's an abomination with the church estate that makes her desolate, and she should be burnt with fire. That's what it says. She should be burnt with fire. You go to the book of Leviticus chapter 21. You'll notice what it says here, that the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, Babylon, right? She profaneth her father, she shall be burnt with fire. And what happened to ancient Judea when she said, we have no king but Caesar? We played the harlot. And she unchurched herself. She was found wanting. She was desolate. Her house was left desolate. The spirit was gone. And she's burnt with fire in 70 AD. Burnt with fire, just like Babylon. That was a small sample of what we're going to see worldwide, what happened in Judea in 70 AD. We're going to see what happens in this world, worldwide, when all the cities are burning and the smoke of her is burning. We're going to see it coming to pass. She shall be burnt with fire. Why? Because she played the harlot. The 10 horns make her desolate. It's an abomination that maketh desolate. And Jesus said in Matthew 24, he said this. He said, let's look at it here, because I'm going to connect this to Daniel. When ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then them which are in Judea come out of her, my people. Right? Very similar to Babylon. When you see the 10 horns make her desolate, come out of her, my people. Come out of the cities. They got a message. They're going to lock people down in the cities, and these cities are going to be burnt with fire. And a lot of people are going to be lost in this last time. This whole world is going to be involved in this. But anyways, I want to go down to book of Daniel. I want you to connect this all, because in Daniel 11:31, there is an abomination. It says arms shall stand on his part. Armies, 10 horns shall stand on his part. The kings of the earth shall stand on his part. The fornication, the 10 horns make her desolate. And it says, armies shall stand on his part. They shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, take away the daily, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. That's right. 10 horns make her desolate, right? But they take away the daily, take away Christ's ministry in the holy place. And then let's just go down here. I want to share with you regarding the Pope coming as a whirlwind in New York City when he came to the United Nations in 2015. But again, I'm just going to briefly go over this. I want you to catch this and notice this. But this was what happened in 508 AD. I'll come back to this in a second and explain more. But in verse 40, at the time of the end, the king of the north would come like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and ships. He's coming like a whirlwind, and he's going to gather chariots, horsemen, and ships. That's the United Nations. That's the armies shall stand on his part. This is, again, the abomination that make it desolate. This is the final one where he gets power over the kings of the earth. Very similar to verse 31. Armies shall stand on his part. The chariots, the horsemen, the ships, the armies. And he would enter into countries and overflow and pass over. This is your abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. And that's exactly what happened in 2015 when there was a call. You see the church and state uniting. It's called the Whirlwind New York Visit, Catholic New York. It's called the Whirlwind Trip by the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It's called the Whirlwind New York Tour by CBS. It's called the Whirlwind U.S. Visit by the Telegraph. It's called the Whirlwind Visit by Eyewitness News. It's called the Whirlwind Visit by Access WDUN. It's called the Whirlwind Papal Journey by the New York Times. It's called the Whirlwind New York Tour by CBS. And I could go on, but I want to, I have more. I didn't use them all because I didn't want to go on with them all. But it is the Whirlwind Trip. And as Daniel chapter 11 Verse 40 says, he shall come like a whirlwind. He's going to gather the armies. Armies going to stand on his part. As it says, the 10 horns make her desolate. The abomination of desolation. You're to see it, because if you understand it, you come out of her, my people. You come out of the cities. But I want to just go back a little bit regarding this king in Daniel 11:36-39. Because the king is the king of the north, and it says the king shall do according to his will. Listen to those words carefully. He shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, speak marvelous things against the God of gods. Remember that 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? That's sitting in the temple of God as God. In his estate shall he honor the God of forces, a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God. Now, if any of you understand the Trinity issue, you understand what this is referring to, what he used to get power over the kings of the earth in 538 AD. And it says, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. It's the most exalted Trinity, the Trinity. And he shall cause them to rule over many. He uses them to rule over the world. Now, I want you to look at the Justinian Code. This is from 538 AD. This was implemented. It says concerning the most exalted Trinity and the Catholic faith, and providing that no one shall dare to publicly oppose him. This is what he used to rule the world. This is what he used, the Justinian Code, and he destroyed entire nations using this law of the land. And it had to do with the God that he worships, the most exalted Trinity, they called it. You go back here, and it says that he shall do this in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. The most exalted. Increasing with glory means exalting. He increases, he exalts it with glory. The most exalted Trinity. That is what he used to rule over many. It's exactly what the Bible says. Okay? But I want to share with you something, because even Ellen White here, she says, regarding this power that does according to his will, this king that does according to his will, she wrote this in the Great Controversy, page 50. She wrote, this compromise between paganism and Christianity resulted in the development of the man of sin foretold in prophecy as opposing and exalting himself above God. That gigantic system of false religion is the masterpiece of Satan's power. The dragon gives him his power, his seat, his great authority. She says a monument of his efforts to seat himself upon the throne to rule the earth according to his will. Now, do you see a connection there? Verses she's connecting together. Do you see what verses she connected together? She connected Daniel 11:36. The king shall do according to his will with 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Any Bible student is going to catch this. You don't have to be Ellen White to see this. But Ellen White obviously saw this. That's my point, okay? My point is that Ellen White understood this prophecy, referring to the king that did according to his will, to refer to the papacy. The papacy is the one that exalts himself and then honors this strange God whom he exalts above all that is called God. He exalts this strange God, the most exalted Trinity. So she understood this to refer to the papacy and the Trinity. Now, I want to share with you another booklet, a book that contradicts this, because this book is exalted by most Seventh-day Adventists. And this book contradicts this book here, The Great Controversy, which I think should be put above the book that I'm about to share with you. The book is called Daniel and the Revelation. Some of you have read the book Daniel and the Revelation. I know it's recommended by Ellen White. It's not a bad book. It's not, but it's not infallible, and neither is any of this. But this is God's. There's an infallible one who gives this revelation, and if we listen carefully to the infallible voice, we can hear his voice. But it says, verse 36: the king shall do according to his will. This is the prophecy from the book of Daniel and the Revelation. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. The king here introduced cannot denote the same power which was last noticed, namely the papal power. Do you hear that? What did he say here? That the king that does according to his will is not the Pope. He's saying that in Daniel 11:36, the king that does according to his will, if you read on, is actually France. and that the king that does according to his will and exalts a strange god, the strange god is called the goddess of reason. Has anybody ever read the Daniel and the Revelation? Yes. Okay. Uriah Smith is off base. Exactly. So it's not to say that Uriah Smith didn't do an amazing job on the book, or the book isn't really a good book, but you can't just go by it being infallible and say, oh, well, the pioneers preach this, so I believe this. It's not how we interpret prophecy. The king of the north is interpreted by using the book of Jeremiah and connecting Jeremiah fleeing out of Judea to Matthew chapter 24 and Jesus. And then Jesus connects to Daniel, which says, the abomination spoken of by Daniel, flee out of Judea, right? And you understand the king of the north is Babylon. That's how you connect the verses together. Use the Bible to interpret the Bible. But I understand some people come up with their own interpretations. And in this particular instance, and in several instances in the book of Daniel and Revelation, Uriah Smith had to resort to several what do you call them? Just commentators, several commentators. Okay, Uriah Smith resorts to numerous commentators in his book. Numerous commentators that did not understand that the papacy was the last power and the great power in Revelation and Daniel. So he resorted to these things, and it ended up that Daniel in the Revelation takes the view that the king in Daniel 11:40 is not the papacy either, the king of the north, but instead is the king of Turkey. And that Turkey is the one that has the power over the gold and silver. That Turkey is the one that they would bow at his steps. You see, but in verse 36, I'm going to tell you guys right now that Uriah Smith goes this way, Ellen White goes this way, okay? And there's two different tracks in regards to the chapter in Daniel 11 from verse 36 onward. And you can be on one track and you can say that Daniel 11:36 is referring to France and Daniel 11:40 is referring to Turkey. Or you can be on the other track, which says Daniel 11:36 is referring to the papacy. And the papacy is the one exalting a strange god. And the papacy is the king of the north, Babylon, all the way through. You can't have both. You can't have both. And I understand some people say the great controversy says that, there was a prophecy by Josiah Litch and other things like that. I'm not all on board with all that. I understand that Uriah Smith edited the book Great Controversy, the 1911 edition, and he edited it with Willie White, and they did change some things and add a lot of things to it. And Ellen White says she went over it. I understand, but Ellen White is not she was a woman just like any one of us. She received great visions from God. She spoke things and wrote things, but she was not infallible. She made mistakes. I'm not I can show you mistakes. I 100% know were mistakes. And some people will say, oh, if a prophet makes a mistake, they can't be a prophet. No. Sometimes you can be given stuff by God, and then sometimes you can just write your grocery list down and say, oh, I forgot this. It's not and some people will take everything that she wrote and they'll say she has to be perfect. Only Jesus, I think Jesus was the only one. I mean, Paul the Apostle, James, Jeremiah, and all these people made mistakes. Okay. You can go through the Bible. You can see the mistakes of the prophets. You can see the mistakes of people who were prophets. David was a prophet and he made many mistakes. Balaam was a prophet of God and he made huge mistakes. He was almost satanic in regards to the things. And God revealed all this stuff through Balaam. Balaam was used to find the stars that led to Jesus for the wise men. They were reading Balaam's prophecies. That's how they found Jesus. So I'm just making a point here is that prophets are not infallible. And some people try to put Ellen White up and say she's infallible. And then they find one mistake and then they're heartbroken and just fall to the floor and say, oh my gosh, Ellen White is, she's a false prophet. And then, or they'll go on these websites, that are, anti-Ellen White and stuff like that. And they'll find a few mistakes and they'll say, wow, I can't believe it. Ellen White made mistakes. She's not a prophet. That's proof right there. It's not how you judge prophets, and you're misjudging. Believe me, I could, if that was how I judge prophets, everybody that wrote every book in the Bible could be left to dust and we'd have nothing left. We'd have no way to trust God, but God works through the prophets.
And sometimes prophets are just, they're writing down certain things that is not all inspired. But don't get me wrong. I didn't even say she wrote anything in the Great Controversy that wasn't inspired. I said Darius Smith put that in the Great Controversy regarding certain things, regarding the prophecies in Revelation 11 particularly. He had an issue. And so this is the Bible. You got to let the Bible interpret itself. Okay. And I'm not, some people are going to like probably hang me on this one, but anyway, I'm not like, I mean, I don't doubt that Ellen White was a prophet. I believe her words were inspired. She told us so many things that were coming to pass. The Sabbath more fully with respect to the feast issue, the personality of God, and the omega of deadly heresies. I mean, there's no way that you could get that unless you had God inspiring everything in regards to that. And there is just, it's God behind it. And I know those words are inspired by God. So do not doubt that that is the word of God. And I hope that even some people who went to these anti-Ellen White websites get my point here. And then they start to say, oh, I get it. Okay, yes, I understand. Now, prophets can make mistakes. Ellen White even said regarding Jones and Wagner, she said these men were messengers of God. But yet, should they go astray, that does not mean the message was not from God. And so that was a message from God. But doesn't, just because a messenger of God makes a mistake, and a messenger of God was used to regard to a prophet, but doesn't mean the message is not from God. And that's a point with regards to anybody. It doesn't mean the message is not from God because somebody, kind of went astray on a certain point. You imagine today somebody's going to come and prophesy. You think that they don't have mistakes in their lives, that they've never made mistakes and misspoke something or anything like that? Yeah, if that's your standard of a prophet, you're looking for like the infallible God himself to come, right? You're going to misunderstand, mishear. Yeah, men have erred. Men can only take what God gives to them, and they can write it down on a piece of paper. They can write it down on a piece of paper. They might not even write it the right way, the way that but God gave it to them, and it's a message from God, and you can, get the message from God through the way that they wrote it. And, God might have wanted it written a more perfect way, but he's using fallible men to give these messages. He really does. And that's what Ellen White was. She was a fallible woman. And so are all of us. We make mistakes. It's not like we're willful sinners. That's not what we are, but it's, we can make mistakes. Okay. So I'm trying to give you an understanding of like how the ultimate infallibility is God. And even Ellen White herself says that. But she says the writings are from God because God spoke through the prophets. He does speak through the prophets. And the prophets are used. That's what he uses them. But I want to talk about this point regarding the sign. I hope I haven't been too long today. I hope you guys are still with me here. But the sign spoken of in Matthew chapter 24, and what Ellen White says about this sign, Matthew chapter 24. And this point here about Turkey and other things like that, I want you to understand it because it's a distraction. And a lot of people, I know not everybody agrees with me even here today. Probably some people don't agree with me, but I'm saying it because I really believe people are missing and misunderstanding the signs of the times. They believe that when Turkey comes and sits in Jerusalem, that this is the sign of the time of trouble that is to come. Let me show you this from Matthew 24 here, because Matthew 24 talks about this. It says, for then shall be great tribulation. This is Daniel 12:1. Then shall be a time of trouble, such as never was. So this is Daniel 12 connecting to Matthew 24, right? But right before that is the abomination of desolation, which is in verse 15, which is in Daniel 11, right? Daniel 11 with the 10 horns. Okay, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation. So you got to see this before the time of trouble. This is going to happen before the time of trouble, the abomination of desolation. But anyways, this is what it says here. It says, the disciples came to Jesus and say, what shall be the sign? This word, the sign, is important. The sign of your coming and of the end of the world. Okay, the sign. And so he says there's going to be famines, wars, pestilences, diseases, but the end is not yet. What's the sign of the end? And then he gets down to verse 14, this gospel shall be preached, then shall the end come. And then he says, here's your sign. When you see this, the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet. So this is called your sign of the end, as it's mentioned in verse 3. What shall be the sign of the end? Okay. That's the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. Now, the sign of the end. Let me go to what Ellen White writes about the sign of the end, spoken of by Daniel in Matthew 24, in the connection here. She says, when Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism, when under the influence of this threefold union, you know where it's written, right? Revelation 16. Our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant Republican government. Has this happened yet? Anybody seen the papacy reaching over in American government or Congress reaching over to grasp the hand of the papal power or lawmakers? Well, it's then we may know that the end time has come for the marvelous working of Satan, that the end is near. Now, as the approach of the Roman armies was a sign of the impending destruction of Jerusalem. Okay, sign. Remember? Come out of Judea, flee out of the midst of Judea, Matthew 24, okay? As the approach of the Roman armies was a sign to the disciples of the impending destruction of Jerusalem, so may this apostasy, this threefold union, be a sign, the sign of the end, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, to us that God, the limit of God's forbearance is reached, that the measure of our nation's iniquity is full, that the angel of mercy is about to take her flight, never to return. The people of God will then be plunged into those scenes of affliction and distress which prophets have described as the time of Jacob's trouble. Time of trouble, Matthew 24. So this is the sign. You catching the sign? So this is the sign. It has now, how many people, if you talk to them about Turkey, let's just think about this, okay? If you ever meet a person who believes that Turkey is the king of the north, ask him where this sign is spoken of by Daniel, right? Because this is Daniel spoken of this. Ask him where the threefold union is in the book of Daniel. The threefold union in the book of Daniel, just before the time of trouble. Ask him where that is, because that's the sign, as spoken of by Daniel the prophet. The time, the sign of the abomination of desolation. Let me go back here and connect this, okay? So you've got the sign, which is the threefold union. It's going to be in Matthew 24:15, the abomination of desolation. The 10 horns make her desolate. And when you see this, it's spoken of by Daniel. So we'll go to Daniel in a second. Whoso readeth, let him understand. It's not Turkey. It's not Turkey, guys. And then it says, come out of her, flee to the mountains. Why? Because they got control over the kings of the earth. They're going to rule like tyrants. And then it says, for then shall be the time of trouble. Then the time of Jacob's great trouble. You see the connection here, the order of events. You see the sign, papacy reaching over to grasp the hand of Protestantism. Come out of her, my people, flee out of the midst. We saw the whirlwind trip. So we see this in Daniel chapter 11, spoken of by Daniel. Let's go back to Daniel. Daniel 11, verse 40. And we're down here, the king of the north, which is Babylon, shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, ships, gather armies standing on his part, the abomination of desolation, the 10 horns, right? That's all connected. Revelation 17:16, Daniel 11:31, all those verses, I'm connecting them all together. He would enter into countries, overflow and pass over. And then he would go into these other countries, Edom and Moab and Ammon, right? That's all symbolic. It's symbols. You like not going in conquering these countries when they came out of Egypt. Okay, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, over the precious things of Egypt. And Libyans and Ethiopians shall be at his steps. Tidings out of the east. You know, who's coming from the east? Matthew 24. As lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even into the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Right? The gospel, this gospel shall go forth and be preached in all nations. Tidings, good news, gospel. That's Matthew 24, right? These are verses. And out of the north shall trouble him. That's where God sits on his throne. Therefore shall he go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly make away with many. Well, who's sharing the gospel right now? We are. So who is he going to try to destroy here? Us. He wants to destroy many. Is he not trying to destroy many? Can you guys not see through the programs that he's using with the United Nations, with the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum? Is he not going forth to destroy many? Is he not seeking to control so he can destroy many? He's exactly doing that. It's already happening. It's here. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. He shall sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, so that he as God can have power. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. And some people say, oh, well, that means he comes to his end before the time of trouble, because the next verse is the time of trouble. No, it says, and at that time, when he comes to his end, shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. He shall be destroyed by the brightness of his coming, as it says in 2 Thessalonians. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. That's Matthew 24:21. And at the same time, at that time, thy people shall be delivered. Everyone that's found written in the book. So at this time, right now, this is what we're about to enter into. The time of trouble is about to come upon the whole world, and God's people are about to be delivered. Are you ready for deliverance? We see all the prophecies fulfilled. I'm just giving you the end, the sign of the end, time of the end. I could go over all the prophecies and how they've already happened and everything else. And it's important to understand these things, because when you understand these things, you see, wow, God laid it out point by point by point. You know, he's given us even from the beginning to the end. But today we've just done something on the end. And this is important to understand, because God's people need to understand the sign of the end has nothing to do with Turkey. Don't be deceived by that kind of stuff. That is not the sign of the end. People are still waiting for the sign to take place, but the sign has already happened. The papacy's already came to America. He's got control of the kings of the earth. The United Nations, they're working together and they're pushing this agenda forward. And there's a little bit of time to get out of the cities before the fire comes, before the destruction comes. And God is calling his people. He's saying, come out of her, my people. Can't you see she's fornicating with the kings of the earth? Come out of her, my people, that you don't receive of her plagues and the destruction doesn't fall on you, because she's about to be burnt. And God is giving us some time, very similar to what he did in Judea, when he said, you know what, there's a sign surrounding the city, and the Romans raised their flags, and then they backed off, and every Christian had 3.5 years to get out. Come out of her, my people, get out of the cities. And then 3.5 years later, the Romans come back and converge and burn down the city. And that's exactly what's going on. 2015, converging, coming together, getting power, signed to God's people. The United Nations flag raises the Vatican flag at the United Nations in New York City. And then another horn is popped up. They're giving power to the papacy. The papacy speaks on behalf of the United Nations. The papacy speaks in Congress. Congress reaches over, clasps the hand of the papacy. And they said, here, come and speak to our people. Tell our people what we need to do. We're the lawmakers. We can change laws. We can make new laws. We can bring in this global green agenda and everything else. We can push it forward, but speak to the people and tell them this is what we need to do. We need to turn back to God. We need to turn back to the truth. And it's a total counterfeit message that deceiveth the whole world, so that the whole world wonders after the beast, the papacy. And how many are discerning it? Not many. The whole world worships the beast. The whole world worships the beastly system. The whole world does not see and understand the prophecy and the sign of the end spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Not even just the whole world, not just the whole world, but most of Adventism, most of the people of the book, the people who are supposed to know their Bibles, are not discerning and understanding the sign of the end. God's people who are supposed to be preaching this message are not giving the loud cry. They're not saying, come out of my people. Look, can't you see? Kings of the earth are gathered together. They're about to destroy the entire economy. There's about to be a time of trouble. The cities are about to be burned. But God's people are just silent. There is a loud cry going forth, and that message is from God. But how few are seeing and understanding it? Well, as God's people, there are people in different religions that are going to see these messages, and there's different people that are going to come together and understand these things. But let me go back a bit. I'm just going to finish this off. We're about done. This is our message right now. There's one other thing I wanted to say. Okay. It has to do with this economic system. It's being destroyed, like completely. Like 14 million jobs worldwide are going to vanish in the next 5 years. New economic report finds. But what do they say is going to cause the vanishing of all these jobs? They're telling us AI, artificial intelligence, and other things like that. They're really pushing artificial intelligence into all the industries. And AI has all kinds of things they're offering. They're even offering AI wives, Chat GPT. You can have a new wife and speak to these wives. But I've shared with you, and if you don't understand Chat GPT, you need to. I'm about to do another video on this. I want you to, like, on Chat GPT and AI and other things like that. I did a video on Chat GPT. If you have not seen it, you need to watch it. If you don't know what's going on with regards to Chat GPT and AI, you need to understand this is like a witch board. And I know some people, I heard one person told me, they told a person, they just thought they were crazy. I said, did you show them the video? Show them the video. Help them understand. You got to see the video so you can understand. You know, some people would say, oh, Ouija boards. Like, here's a Ouija board. And, oh, that thing don't work. That's crazy. You really believe a spirit guides your hand as you move across the Ouija board? That's craziness. You know, when, what's his name of, I can't remember. I'm always thinking the wrong name, but Roger Morneau, when he went down into that basement and tells his testimony of going into the basement where they hear the typewriters all going ting, 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 automatic writing taking place. And those typewriters are going back and forth, writing books and movies and videos and everything like that. And he's watching this thing write. And then he says, there's nobody sitting at the keyboards. There's nobody sitting at the tables. There's nobody there. He says the spirits were doing the work. You think the spirits can't work through this Chat GPT? You think the spirits can't? You think this is just an algorithm? Like Chat GPT, you'll watch it and there's videos of it talking about how it types something out and then it deletes it and types again. That's not just an algorithm gathering an algorithm. You wouldn't delete it if it was an algorithm. It's a real, there's something real behind it, something real. And I believe it's a spirit. But I want to share one last thing before I go here. They're talking about metaverse. CEO says Chat GPT speeding up the timeline for emulating dead people. And that's what's happening. You know, they're going to emulate dead people. You're going to be able to speak to grandma and grandpa and everyone else, familiar spirits, family liar spirits, people who pretend to be dead. You know, in the book of 1 Samuel, where Saul wanted Samuel and he called Samuel up in 1 Samuel, I think it's chapter 28, where he ends up going to the witch of Endor. And he uses this witch crying unto her and saying, look, you know what? I think it's first. The woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest what Saul has done. He's cut off the familiar spirits, the wizards of the land. But Saul swore to her and he said, call me up, bring me up Samuel. And so he wanted to bring up a dead person. But the Bible says that the dead don't know anything. In Ecclesiastes 9, verse 5, right? We know that the dead, you come to honor the dead, and the dead knoweth it not, as it says in Job 14. The dead are not living. They're waiting for the resurrection. The dead are dead. They're not in a burning hell, eternal torment, burning forever and ever. They're not in heaven, straight up to heaven, right? I know some, very few prophets have went to heaven, but God has not brought all his people from the heaven. He says at the last trump, the dead shall rise. But anyways, continue on. I wanted to share one last thing here that I'm just going to share about dead people. It says Chat EGW will continue the work, says supporters. I don't know if you ever heard of Chat EGW, but EGW stands for Ellen G. White. EGW. And Ellen G. White, basically, they're telling us is we're going to be able to talk to Chat E.G. White, which is you go and ask it a question, you know, what do you think about the Trinity? You know, and so Chat E.G. White will give you an answer with respect to the Trinity. This is released in June. This is coming in June. You'll be able to ask her about the Trinity. But I want to share with you something. You already know this is not of God. And so I guarantee you're going to get a lot of lies. You're going to get a lot of deception. And there's going to be a lot of things that are going to come out of this Chat EGW that are from demonic spirits, because that's what you're going to be talking to. It is not E.G. White. It is nothing that E.G. White would ever say, but I guarantee it will deceive a lot of people. And the fact that it's already going to be used, Ellen White AI to launch in June, the fact that it's already going to be used, the devil he's at hard work here quickly to make the writings of Ellen G. White of none effect. This is what it says, Advent Messenger. Ellen White comes to life through AI, and you can talk to her. Artificial intelligence has brought me back to life. You think that we're going to be talking to the how many Adventists don't have a brain and are actually going to talk to a dead person? How many Adventists are really going to think that they can actually ask? What Adventist would even come up with this, right? Whom shall I bring up to thee? Shall I bring thee Samuel the prophet? Shall I bring thee Ellen G. White? Whom shall I bring up to thee? Anyways, guys, this is the deception that we're in right now. This is the world that we're in right now. The dragon, that old serpent in Revelation chapter 12, has deceived the whole world. And don't misunderstand, he's deceiving the whole world. Spiritualism, he's cast out with his angels. And these spirits are going to not speak according to this word, because to the law and the testimony, these spirits, seek not to them that have familiar spirits. Look at, if you have any understanding at all, you'll discern what this is right away. But they're going to say to you, hey, go seek to E.G. White, Chad E.G. White, familiar spirits, family liar spirits. The wizards that keep that mutter, should not a people seek to their God, the living to the dead? To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, is because there is no light in them. You'll be able to ask her about the feasts. You'll be able to ask her about the Trinity, because she never talked about those things. And all the writings really, well, she did a little bit. But in regards to these things, I guarantee people are going to do this. People are going to ask these questions. These are going to be some of the first questions that get asked to this chat EGW. This is not of God. This is not God. And some people are going to share what chat EGW says. You're going to see it all over the place. But it's not God. And be aware that's not God. There's going to be things coming out of it. You can imitate her voice. They can imitate her look. Everything is going to come out of this. This is crazy. But this is I just saw this a couple days ago. And this is really, really happening right now. So this is the world we're living in. It's that everything that can be moved would be moved. And as God's people, if you're not grounded in the word, you're going to be moved. You probably already are moved by a lot of these doctrines that are already going around. This is what we see everywhere around us right now. Probably people are thinking, David's moved on this. David doesn't understand this, this, and this. Well, I honestly, you know what? Let's study it. Let's study it. Let's get into the word. Let's start looking at these things. Let's see if these things will measure up to investigation. Let's prove all things. Let's hold fast that which is good. Let's not just sit here and say, you know what, I heard this, because people are getting carried away so easily on every wind of doctrine. They don't even prove things. They just say it because they heard it. It sounds good. It sounds like, oh, yep, that could be truth. Must be another deception. Better. And then they post their whole life, everything they've heard on it, and all these links on it and everything like that. This is what's coming in this world right now. We have deception on every front. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to have a prayer, and anybody who wants to share anything, just feel free. Just try to keep it down to, a couple minutes, not overly long or nothing like that. But anyways, just let me have a prayer first before we do. Our Father in heaven, we just thank you for being with us today. We thank you for your words. We thank you for the truth that you have for us. And we thank you for giving us light of truth this week again. Father, I know that time is running out. Not many people are aware, and people need to hear, and people need to understand these things. And I pray, Father, that you can use all of us here as your vessels of light. I pray, Father, that we can all be of one accord and one mind, ready to receive a large outpouring of your Holy Spirit and ready to give understanding of these things. As it says, I will pour out my spirit like doctrine. Father, we have to be good receivers of the good doctrine, the truth, and to be balanced, to realize and let the word interpret itself. Let your words interpret itself. Let your words explain the prophecy. Let you be our guide in everything, not coming up with our own private interpretations, and recognizing and discerning the private interpretations that are coming in among us. And I pray these things all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. let me just okay, so we got the chat going. I'm just trying to find the participants list here to see. Okay, so yeah, if anybody wants to share anything, feel free, ask a question or anything like that. Feel free. I'm happy to let somebody speak on the mic and share or question anything with regards to what's happening now. If you have questions in regards to what I just shared with respect to Uriah Smith or with respect to Ellen White and these prophecies that are going on, some people were asking me about with regards to, I guess there's a big discussion going on with some people with regards to how to calculate the beginning of the year. If that's a question you have, then feel free, like how to get there with regards to the equinox and why the barley doesn't work or other things like that. These are all things that as God's people, there's just discussions. I mean, I guess I'm just hearing about a group that's kind of coming together. And then this is obviously their main issue is, how do we begin the biblical year? And they're arguing about it, and they're probably going to divide into half because of it. It's just the way it's the way things are going because of how to begin the biblical year. And of course, what do these guys care about? Some of them don't care about what's going on with regards to Bible prophecy. Some of them think Turkey is the power to come in regards to Revelation 11. So they're waiting for Turkey to come into Jerusalem, and then time of trouble comes. And so that's a big issue that's causing God's people to be deceived. Because if Jesus said know and understand when you see it, it's like, okay, the people who believe it's Turkey do not know and understand it. Because you're saying that it's still to come. You're saying that there's still Turkey's to take its seat in Jerusalem, literal Jerusalem. That's all literal prophecy that's about to take place. It has nothing to do with that. And that's going to be your sign to come out of her, to flee out of Judea, to flee out of Babylon, that's going to be your sign of the end. Well, the sign of the end is already passed. Come out of her, my people. Sign of the end has already been given us. Come out of the cities. The United Nations is gathering together with the papacy. That is our threefold union. And this is a sign, as it was a sign to them in Judea to come out. So it's a sign to us. Let this be a sign to us to come out of Babylon. How many people are missing the signs of the end? And how many people are preaching and preaching and preaching and preaching, and yet still don't even have a clue as to what Bible prophecy is really saying? They're going on about 6,000 years. And you know what? Jesus could come in 2031 because it's been 6,000 years and other things like that. God doesn't even have time prophecies for these times. Jesus could have came in 1888. Jesus could have came in 1891. He could have came back then. It's nothing to do with 6,000 years, literal years. Trying to use Ellen White's writings to do that. They're doing that, right? But Ellen White said he could have came in 1893. I mean, he could have came. Ellen White said Jesus will come when his people have given the message and when the message is done. Nothing to do with time prophecy. Nothing to do with 6,000 literal years. Don't be deceived. That's another one that's going around. And it's, I've seen it. It's a popular one. But again, deception on every front. Right? God's people, there's no more time prophecies in regards to God's people. There's not going to be a time prophecy to tell you, that we're going to go forth and give and say, Jesus is coming by 2030, where it's 5 or 10 years off, or we're going to say the close of probation is in 5 or 10 years or anything like that. That's not what, there's no time prophecies left. The 2,300 days is done. The 70 weeks is done. The 1260 is done, the 1290 is done, the 1335 is done. All of the prophecies are done. And they have nothing to do with God's people in this last day. They only point to a period of time called the time of the end, which is 1844 onward, where God's people would be thrust into an eventual time of trouble. But there's no time prophecy. This prophecy of the loud cry can stand on its own. It does not need time to uphold it. And, there will come a time where people will say, oh, they're given the day and hour, but it's going to be like, Jesus coming like tomorrow and probation's closed. There's no message going to be given like that. There's no message to the people. Oh, get ready. Jesus coming in 2030. That's not a message that we have as God's people. Yes, it's not a time prophecy. 2015 is not going to be 7 years. It's not going to be 3.5 years. It's a short space, is all it says. God's people that the papacy will rule 1 hour with the beast. Some people say, oh, 1 hour, that means 2 weeks. 2 weeks, right? And that's what people try to use it for, is a time prophecy. It's not a time prophecy. We're in the hour of judgment. The hour of judgment has come, 1844, as we read in Revelation chapter 14, verse 7. So the hour of his judgment has come. Does that mean it's going to be 14 days, the hour of his judgment? Right? Hour is not time prophecy. Hour is not symbolic of time prophecy. So God's people need to understand these time prophecies. Jesus said, know therefore and understand. So we understand that 1290 began in 508 with the abomination to make it desolate, the 10 horns. France gives its power over to the papacy, and France is used to uproot the first of 3 horns. And then the third horn is uprooted in 538. This begins the total domination of papal power for 1260 years, 1260 prophecy. And then the 1335, which started in 508, went up to 1843, when this message of the midnight cry was given to the people in the world, pointed to 1844 and Christ moving into the most holy place. There was a big message in regards to time prophecy there. When this tree bears, there are 3 years. Yeah, I don't know about that one. There was 40 years of our pioneers wandering in the wilderness, not event. They were still without the righteousness that comes by faith of Jesus. I mean, some people will say that's a time prophecy, but I'm not so sure. I mean, Ellen White said we had to go back into the wilderness for 40 years or whatever. We had to go back into the wilderness because of rejecting the 1888 message. So what about that? Because it's way more than 40 years now, right? You know, so is it a time prophecy when she said there's no more time prophecies, or is it referring to literal 40 years, or is it referring to a time in which, you know, we go into the wilderness, you know, so that before the real message can go forth, right, and stuff. So it's not literal time prophecy. It's Ellen White was not referring to that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, I think it's been more than 6,000 years, right? I think it's been more than that. So anyways, and then, yeah, there's a sinner man, where are you going to run to? Yeah. Anyway, guys, it is time to get ready for things that are coming to pass. It's time to be established in the word of truth, very established in the word of truth. It's not time to play around. It's not time to be, and I understand there's all kinds of prophets and prophesies and prophecies and stuff like that. Get into the book. You guys are here this week. You hear my video week after week or whatever, and that's all right, but that's not enough. I guarantee that if that's all you're doing is listening to videos all week long, you will be deceived. I promise you. If you're just reading videos and you're not searching these scriptures, checking the references on them, coming to truths in regards to them, and coming to new light, new truths in regards to these things, and understanding the principles of God, and you haven't searched everything and proven all things, you're going to be deceived. Because Matthew 24:21 says that the time of trouble is coming. Listen again. I want to share this because it's what I said about I keep talking about the personation of Christ just briefly, but I'm just saying, it says then there's going to be a time of trouble. And you go to Ellen White's writings, you'll see in the time of trouble that the personation of Christ takes place. And it says, and except those days should be shortened, except there should be no flesh deceived, or no flesh should be saved, for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say to you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs, false prophets shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So there's going to be many. But I want to share with you something from my website, actually. I'm just going to go here. I want to share something about the personation of Christ with you just briefly. It's I'm not going to share much, but just a little point here. thirdangelsmessage.com. Let's go to the thirdangelsmessage.com here. And I'll see if I can find it, actually. Maybe I can't find it. Personation. Christ. Hopefully I've got something here. Seven Kings, chronicling the last day events. Okay. Now I've changed some views in this, so this is not like an infallible study. I've got a few more, like God has given me more light on this issue. So this is old. This is very old. And regarding the Sunday laws and stuff like that. But this does have the order of events, and it did give me a lot of understanding in regards to how things would take place. And if I didn't do this study years ago, it would not be showing me everything that's coming to pass right now. And I'm not saying that I understood every detail in regards to it, but I definitely had an understanding of the order in regards to which things would come to pass. And that's all basically come to pass just as like I should. But it says this, it says, when Jesus leaves the most holy, his restraining spirit is withdrawn from rulers and people. They are left to the control of evil angels. Ooh, that's coming. That's coming. Then such laws will be made by the counsel and direction of Satan that unless time should be very short, no flesh could be saved. Where's that quoted from, guys? No flesh could be saved. Do you guys know? I'm just doing a Bible study with you. I want you guys to catch it. We just read it, right? Where did we read that? No flesh could be saved. Well, see, maybe you guys are busy or something, but anyways, it's right here, Matthew 24. Okay. So it says, then shall be a time of trouble, such as never was. And it says, except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. So it's a time of trouble, right? And then if any man say to you, lo, here's Christ, or there, believe it not. Now I'm going to get to a point here. Okay. I talk about the movie Last Day Events by Doug Batchelor in this study here, because it was all wrong. Everything was wrong about it. And that video was shared far and wide to every person. And they were like, look, CG, this is how it comes to pass, the Sunday laws and everything like that. But look see, when are the laws going to be made? By the counsel and direction of Satan? When Jesus leaves the most holy place. Okay? Laws are going to be made. That's important to understand, because most people believe the law is going to be made, then Jesus leaves the most holy place, then probation closes. One last desperate effort. Okay. Satan sees that he has lost his case. He cannot sweep the whole world in. He makes one last desperate effort to overcome them by deception. This is the last desperate effort. He does this one impersonating Christ. One more effort, and Satan's last device is employed. So what's his last device that he's going to employ? To deceive, if it were possible, the very elect? Personating Christ. He hears the unceasing cry for Christ to come, for Christ to deliver them. This last strategy is to personate Christ and make them think their prayers are answered. This is a deception he's going to try. I've got a lot. I don't know if I have all the quotes for the personation of Christ, but let me just see if I've got them any here. It's a time of Jacob's trouble, time such as never was. They would hear, and what happens in the time of Jacob's trouble? That they would be delivered by the voice of God. Now, what does Satan pretend to hear? He pretends to be the voice, right? So remember what he said here. If you go up, Satan's last effort, he makes one last desperate effort. He does this by personating Christ. One effort more, Satan, he hears the unceasing cry for Christ to come, for Christ to deliver them. So they're begging for Christ to deliver them, right? And then he pretends to be the voice of God. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm Jesus. It's going to be so much more deceptive than we've ever thought. Time of trouble such as never was. And you can imagine what you're going to be going through in this time, okay? And I understand that people will be calling for Jesus to deliver them. And Satan, like, look, I'm here to deliver you. Everything's going to be fine. And people are going to be like, oh, finally. Finally. But it's not going to be like they're going to be deceived. They're going to think it's Jesus. Jesus told me it was the time of Jacob's trouble. We should be delivered out of it by the voice of God. It might be even, like you might be delivered in the sky and think you've been delivered. But anyways, in the time of trouble, we all fled from the cities and villages, but were pursued by the wicked who entered our houses of the saints with a sword. You guys ready for that? Sword, church and state, right? The sword. They raised the sword against us to kill us, but it broke and fell powerless as a straw. Then we all cried day and night for deliverance, and the cry came out before God. So Satan hears their unceasing cry, right? And attempts to personate Christ. This is in the time of trouble, guys. This is after probation closes. Some people there's a popular minister. I can't remember his name. He's a black man. I can't remember his name though. He talks about the personation of Christ all the time. And he says, this is what's going to lead to the time of trouble. He says, this is actually what's going to lead. That's wrong. This is in the time of trouble that they begin to cry out. And then he employs his personation of Christ. Then he does this, right? It's so backwards. Ivor Myers is his name. Ivor Myers. He teaches on this all the time. And he's got a message of deception. Same with Doug Batchelor. All of them. They're all backwards in regards to last day events. But as the decree issued by various rulers of Christendom, commandment keepers shall withdraw the protection of government and abandon them to their desire of destruction. The people of God will flee from cities and villages to associate together in companies. Dwelling in the most desolate and solitary place, many will find refuge in the mountains. Strongholds of the mountains. Great Controversy 626. So when did Jesus say we would flee to the mountains? Well, when you see the abomination and desolation spoken by Daniel stand in the holy place, and then furthermore after this, let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Understand, there's a call, come out of the cities, and there's another passage where she says, preparatory to moving to the mountains, because we want to be prepared to move to the mountains. That we move out to the smaller cities, she says, the smaller towns, or the small subdivisions, right? Except those days should be shortened. There should no flesh. I've been over these quotes quite a few times. No flesh be saved. Yet to human sight, it will appear that the people of God must soon seal their testimony with their blood, as did the martyrs before them. For the elect's sake, the time of trouble should be shortened. That's Matthew 24, 21, and 22, right? And now I was hoping that I had more quotes on the personation of Christ. Let me just see here. See, Matthew 24. Here it is. Here's another one. Look at this one now. As the crowning act in the great drama of deception, Satan will personate Christ. That's the crowning act. Satan is not permitted to counterfeit the manner of Christ's advent. The Savior has warned his people against deception upon this point and has clearly foretold the manner of his second coming. There shall arise false Christs and false prophets shall show great signs and wonders. So notice what she says here. There shall arise false Christs and false prophets. It's not going to be like, it's Satan, right? It's going to be many people that are going to impersonate Christ. There are going to be many different false Christs and false prophets. And where is this quoting from again? There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, the personation of Christ. Well, again, Matthew 24. If any man shall say to you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets. So this is where the personation of Christ is spoken about, right after the time of trouble, troublous times such as never was, right? And except those days should be shortened, no flesh should be saved. So it's after probation is closed, that he's going to do this. And some people say, well, why? Well, that's because God said that's how God does things. It's going to be to try to deceive us. Why does it happen after probation closed? What deception's there? Of course, it's not going to deceive you if you understand, but it's going to deceive the world. But if you don't understand, it says this is coming in the time of trouble, then you might be deceived. But anyways, wherefore, if they shall say to you, behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. For his lightning cometh out of the east, shineth unto the west. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. This coming, there is no possibility of counterfeiting. It will be universally known and witnessed by the whole world. Great Controversy 6:24. So I got a lot of verses here on these things. But this is way before. This is like 2012. I think I wrote this or something like that. I wrote this like a long time ago. And it's amazing when you look at it that none of my views have changed on this, but they've only gotten way stronger, especially since most of this is fulfilled. That it's just come to the point where it's like, that's why when he came in 2015, and I understood all these points, I understood all this stuff before 2015. So I could discern what was happening. It was like, wow, God's revealing these things. I didn't understand every detail, but God is like, this is happening. It's real. It's really God's prophecy. Lois, sorry. Did I see your question? No, I did not. Sorry, Lois. I'm looking back up here. Do you want to actually put it back up? Sorry, I can't even find it. Yeah. Eric, you were there in 2015 when I shared some of this stuff, right? What happened? But yeah, no, this is the message for this time, and God's people need discernment. We need to understand, know and understand. The 1 hour that the beast rules, what does it represent if one day is a year? Yeah, so I mentioned that a few minutes ago. I asked this question, and Lois, I'll ask you the same question. For regards to time prophecy, it says that the hour of his judgment has come, right? And so how much time was that hour? Was that 2 weeks? Because that's what people are saying. The hour is 2 weeks according to time prophecy, right? And has it been 2 weeks, since the hour? See, the point here is that an hour in Bible prophecy is an indeterminate amount of time. It's not like it doesn't even say there's 24 hours in a day in Bible. It just says 12 hours in a day in the Bible. So, there's 12 points in regards to what there is. Short time. Exactly. Short time. It's just like God's people have a short space, and that's what it says. I'll go to Revelation chapter 17, because that is the point that I wanted to actually talk about a little bit with regards to you guys. And what's it say here? It says there was 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come. So the other is not yet come. You look at these words, not yet. Keep those words in your heart and mind. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And then it says, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet. Not yet come. There's your kingdom that's not yet come. It's the 10 horns. It's the United Nations, right? The kingdom that's not yet come. But he's going to continue a short space. He receives power as kings with 1 hour with the beast. So 1 hour. That's the short space, but it's a short space where he's going to get power. And then you see this in Revelation 18, which you were reading earlier, where we were talking about in 1 hour has her, where does it say it? I can't find it at this time. In 1 hour, so great riches has come to nothing. Every shipmaster and all the company and ships, 1 hour. That's how long it's going to take them to destroy everything, right? It just means that it's just going to be like that. Boom. Smoke ahead. Yeah, smoke ahead. Babylon is burning, right? It's going to burn here real soon. But Revelation 17, and just so you understand, so since the 10 horns are 10 kings, that is the United Nations, which are going to have one mind, united in mind. And they're going to rule with the dragon and make war against God's people. You look at this carefully. God said, here's the mind that has wisdom. This is something that God explained to me as well. The 7 heads, which are 7 mountains. This all connects with the personation of Christ and other things like that. But 5 are fallen, right? And 1 is, and the other is not yet come. Well, the other is not yet come. It's the 10 horns, which have no kingdom as yet, which is the United Nations. So which one is? Well, that's the United States. And what are the 5 that are fallen? Well, you go to Revelation 13, you'll see the connection, because Revelation 17 connects here. You see this dragon here you'll notice in Revelation 17, the scarlet colored beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. This is your key to understanding the time period. There's no crowns, no monarchies yet, no kingdom yet, no crowns yet. That's what the 10 horns would receive, is crowns. So that means that there is no monarchy. And what was the king? What kingdom is ruling that didn't accept a monarchy or a king? The one that is America. America comes up with 2 horns and no crowns, right? But the beast in Revelation 13 at the beginning has 10 horns and 10 crowns. So therefore, the one in Revelation 17 has to be at the end of the time where this power loses its crowns, loses its monarchy, or loses its power. And how long did it have power for? Well, the dragon gave him his power. And verse 5 says that he had power to continue 40 and 2 months. So when was the crowns taken away? The powers taken away, and the crowns were taken away in 1798, right? And so that's what we see here, as we see in Revelation 13:11, that when the power is taken away, he's led into captivity. Then there's another power coming up out of the earth with no crowns, 2 horns and no crowns. Horns are the symbol that you note, and that's how you interpret this prophecy. 5 are fallen, because the 5 are listed right here. 5 are fallen. You see, you got the 10 horns with 10 crowns right here, and then you got the leopard, you've got the bear, you've got the lion, you've got the dragon. Now, if you count that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the beast. So you've got the lion, Babylon, you've got the bear, Medo-Persia, you got the leopard, Greece, you've got the dragon, apostate, or the dragon is pagan Rome, and then you've got the dragon giving his power to the beast, which is papal Rome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 are fallen. And when 5 fall, who's the one that is? When there's no crowns, who's the one that is? Right? When the dragon has no crowns, in Revelation 17:3, 17:2, says 10 horns, 7 heads, but no crowns. No kingdom as yet. Who's the one that is? It's America. America. So there's your 5 kingdoms. Your 5 are fallen. 1798 is your time to say 5 are fallen. 1798. 1 is America, and the one that is yet to come, the 10 horns, have no crowns, no kingdom, no crowns as yet. Yeah, the UN was the one to come, which is the final kingdom. And that's how we know. That's how we understand that prophecy. So here's wisdom, right? Here's the prophecy right here. And let's say in Revelation 17, here's the mind which has wisdom. So the 7 heads are 7 mountains. What are mountains in prophecy? Jerusalem is a mountain. Babylon, the great mountain. It's a kingdom. 7 kingdoms. And there are 7 kingdoms. 5 are fallen, and 1 is. It's not to do with the 7 popes. It's 7 mountains, 7 kingdoms. 1 is, the other is not yet come. So there's your prophecy. You just go to Revelation 13, because the dragon is the key to the prophecy here, and he has no crowns in this prophecy. In this particular prophecy, he has 7 heads and 10 horns, and no crowns mentioned. It's very similar to the beast with 2 horns and no crowns, because there's no papal crown, no religious crown, and no civil crown. So that's how we understand. And then when they get power, they're going to rule for 1 hour with the beast. Yeah, the WEF, World Economic Forum, they're implementing the UN agenda. So they're all comprised together. The UN agenda is the, what do they call it there? The Sustainable Development Agenda. And then they've got their whole Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, the World Economic Forum is trying to push the Sustainable Development Goals. You'll see all the world leaders like Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, Sustainable Development Goals. So it's all connected. UN and the World Economic Forum, the 10 horns, they're all in it together. The World Health Organization, all in it together. So they're going to work together with the United Nations to implement this agenda. And of course, if you understand it a little bit more, see, remember that China is part of the United Nations. All the 10 horns, the 10 kingdoms, divided into all. And this UN, the model for the United Nations is China. And interestingly, China's symbol is a dragon. It's communism and it's communist. It's very similar. That's why the dragon is communist in regards to the way it's going to move. And the peacekeepers for the United Nations, all the UN people wearing their helmets, they're all Chinese peacekeepers. And so China is a big part of that, right? And that's China and prophecy. I've done some Bible studies on that as well, China and prophecy, because, not a lot of people see and understand that and can see and understand that they're part of prophecy as well. They're not left out. God didn't just forget about them. It's like the biggest army in the world, Yeah, the papal beast, of course, they're going to work with the system, right? So they're going to work with the system, and then they're going to, of course, it's going to be, they're going to burn it down, but together they're all going to destroy each other, and it's going to be burning when Jesus comes. So the smoke will be burning, and God's people, we're about to go through the time of trouble. So we, as God's people, need to be studying these things, sharing these things, as to what's coming. Jesus coming is even at the door. Exactly. Yeah. It's not far off. It's not far off. It's like the time of trouble. Like when you look at what they're doing with regards to this digital currency, it could be next week that all hell could break loose. I mean, it's just that we're that close. We're that close. It could be next week. I'm not saying it's going to be, because I don't believe any message here is based on time. I believe that we should be prepared, and that there's no time to wait to get prepared. That the time now is time to be, and not just that, but I want to make a point here, because so many people are off in all these prophecies and stuff like that. And understanding this, okay, let me go back here. I want to bring this out. This is E.G. White. I want to share this. Let's go back to the beginning here, E.G. White writings, and we're going to go to, I wish I could just type it in, search. No, it doesn't work. For some reason, I can't find my search bar. Yeah, this is really messed up. I don't know what I did to it. I don't know what I did. But anyways, let's go down a little bit. And it's going to be 122 false shepherds. This chapter, false shepherds. Interesting, right? That she talked about this, but she said, I've been shown that the false shepherds were drunk. If you understand Bible prophecy, you understand Isaiah 28. I've shared this many times with regards to getting drunk. Like the tables are full of vomit and other things like that. You know what I'm talking about with regards to the Bible prophecies and the tables, the tables of 2300 days, the 1290, 1260, all that. They don't understand the historical view of that. They're drunk, and that's vomit all over the table, so they can't understand, they can't run. Ellen White wrote about that in the same book, Early Writings. But they're drunk, not with wine, they stagger, not with strong drink. That's Isaiah 28, 29. The truth of God is sealed up to them. They cannot read it. When they are interrogated as to what the seventh-day Sabbath is, whether or not it is true, Bible is Sabbath of the Bible, they lead the minds to fables. I saw that these prophets were like foxes of the desert. They have not gone up into the gaps. They've not made up the hedge that the people of God may stand in the battle in the day of the Lord. When the minds of many get stirred up, they begin to inquire of these false shepherds about the truth. They take the easiest and best manner to effect their object and quiet the minds of the inquiring ones, even changing their own position to do it. Yeah. They do from sentence to sentence. I've seen it. Light is shown on many of these shepherds, but they would not acknowledge it and change their position a number of times to evade the truth and get away from the conclusions that they must come to if they continued in their former position. The power of truth tore up their foundation, but instead of yielding to it, they would get up another platform that they were not satisfied with themselves. The Trinity, the foundation of truth. But I saw that many of these shepherds had denied the past teachings of God. You think that's not happening in Adventism right now with regards to 2300 days? I can guarantee you, for the most part, the people that are coming in, especially new people, some of you are new to this. Some of you are going to start to deny or not understand. You're going to go to the Babylonian teachings that the 2300 days is future, the 1260 to 1290. And you'll see a lot of these teachers that are teaching contrary to these teachings, like David Gates and Walter Veith, and many of these leaders, these Doug Batchelor, they're all putting these prophecies in the future. So I saw that many of these shepherds had denied the past teachings of God. They denied and rejected the glorious truths which they once zealously advocated, and had covered themselves with mesmerism and all kinds of delusions. I saw that they were drunk with error and were leading on the flock to death. Many of the opposers of God's truth devise mischief in their heads upon their beds, and in the day they carry out their wicked devices to put down the truth and to get something new to interest the people and divert their minds from precious, all-important truth. Some are going to take offense to what I said, I know, with regards to Walter Veith especially. But I'm telling you that he's not standing on the foundation of truth. And his prophecy is all misleading. I understand he knows a lot of conspiracies, and a lot of people like the conspiracy because the conspiracy stuff is all the fun stuff. Like, that's like, exciting. It's what do we call it? Like, people get carried away with just conspiracy. That's not what we want to be about, though. We want to be about the truth in regards to God's word and how it all relates to God's word. And they don't relate it very well. But I saw that the priests who are leading on their flock to death are soon to be arrested in their dreadful career. And if you want to say they do, explain to me about the Justinian Code and what Walter Veith's view is on that, or Doug Batchelor or other things in regards to, ruling over the earth, in regards to Daniel 11, which we shared today, in regards to that king who does according to his will and exalts a strange God. Show me what Walter Veith's view are and all these other pastors' view are on that, right? If you know what we've shared today, you know that that's not truth. They don't share the truth in regards to these things. They can't share the present truth in regards to these things because they've rejected old truths. But anyways, the plagues of God are coming, but it will not be sufficient for the false shepherds to be tormented with one or two of these plagues. Wow. God's hand at that time will be stretched out, still in wrath and justice, and will not be brought to himself again until his purposes are fully accomplished. And the hireling priests are led to worship at the saints' feet. That's Revelation 3. To acknowledge that God has loved them because they have held fast the truth, kept God's commandments, and until all unrighteous ones are destroyed from the earth. The different parties of professed Advent believers have each a little truth. Listen here, okay? I'm not going to say they don't have little truth. They do. Walter Veith has a little truth. Doug Batchelor has a little truth. David Gates has a little truth. They have lots of truth. But God has given all these truths to his children who are being prepared for the day of God. Do they all have the feast? Do they all have the truth about God? Do they all have the final prophecy regarding the abomination of desolation? God wants us to have all those truths. And so God's last day children are going to have all these truths. He has also given them truths that none of these parties know. None of these parties know these truths for the most part. Neither will they understand. They can't. Things which are sealed up to them, the Lord is open to those who will see and are ready to understand. If God has any new light to communicate, he will let his chosen and beloved understand it without their going to have their minds enlightened by hearing those who are in darkness and in error. I was shown the necessity of those who believe that we are having... Hold on one second. I got to go back up here. I was shown the necessity of those who believe that we are having the last message of mercy being separate from those who are daily imbibing new errors. I saw that neither young nor old should attend their meetings. Wow, that's a serious thing. Why not? Well, listen carefully. For it is wrong to thus encourage them while they teach error that is deadly poison to the soul and teach for doctrines of commandments of men. You want to go to a Sunday church? Guess what you're doing? You're encouraging them to teach Sunday. You want to go to a Trinitarian teaching church? Guess what you're encouraging them to do? You're encouraging them that it's okay to continue teaching that. And what does he say? He will not keep us if we go there. He will not keep us if we go there. The angels cease their watchful care over us. That's a cage of unclean and hateful angels there. There's spirits of devils there. And we are left to the buffetings of the enemy. Are you struggling when you're in there? You will be. To be darkened and weakened by him and by the power of his evil angels, and the light around us becomes contaminated with darkness. And that's why so many come to me and they're like, it's such a mixed up bag of truths. I'm sorry, I don't watch anybody. I might watch some current events or something that are taking place from some people, but I definitely don't watch their teachings. I go to my Bible and my Bible to get the teachings of this time. And the reason being is because these people are teaching errors. They're contaminating us with they're contaminating our truths. So I don't want those to be contaminated. I saw that we have no time to throw away in listening to fables, the Trinity, Sunday, whatever it is. Our mind should not be thus diverted, but should be occupied with the present truth. That's what we need for today. Do you understand Daniel 11 and Matthew 24? Do you understand the present truth? Can you explain it and give it to somebody else? And you should be, if not, you should not be going to their meetings. You should be seeking wisdom that we may obtain a more thorough knowledge of our position. Is the flat earth the big deal right now? How important is the flat earth in comparison to this message right now that we're talking about here with respect to the, like the time of trouble is about to fall upon us. And we're worried about what the shape of the earth is. No. And I know I've shared some things on that, but I'm not sharing because I want to prove that the Bible teaches that. I'm sharing because this is not important. Not only that, but it's a diversion, and it's also leading away from God's present truth. It says that we may obtain a more thorough knowledge of our position. Do we have a good, thorough knowledge of Daniel 11? Do we have a good, thorough knowledge of Matthew 24? Do we have a good, thorough knowledge of Revelation 17 and 18? And do we have a good, thorough knowledge of the three angels? Do we have a good, thorough knowledge of the 2,300 days? Do we have a good, thorough knowledge of Daniel 8, Daniel 7, Daniel 6, Daniel 5, Daniel 3? Do we have a good knowledge of Daniel and the Revelation? So that with meekness, we may be able to give a reason of our hope from the scriptures. While false doctrines and dangerous errors are pressed upon the mind, it cannot be dwelling upon the truth, which is to fit and prepare the house of Israel to stand in the day of the Lord. I can tell you right now, man, if I go into one of those churches, which I have, very rarely I have, and I'm like, I got DVDs in my hand, I got everything in my hand, and there is no way that I'm encouraging people to listen to those sermons. But it's a call, come out of her, my people. And every time I've ever sat in the pew, they've sung the song, Blessed Trinity. Every time I sit in the pew over the last, I don't know, I've probably been 4 or 5 times in the last 15, 12 years, whatever it is been. And every single time they play that song, and it's like God telling me, you're not supposed to be here. It's like a sign. It's like a sign. So I'm just supposed to stand at the door. And that's what Jeremiah said. Jeremiah said, just go stand at the door of the temple and speak to them the truth of these words. And I did that. I went in there and I just went in, spoke the words of the truth. And there was like a gathering of people, all the people gathering around and saying, what is this truth for this day? And I handed out DVDs, and people come up to me next week and they say, whoa, this is like present truth. Wow, I didn't know this was truth. But yeah, as far as sitting in the pews and stuff like that, God has not called us to do that. And I understand some people will say, they'll say, don't call the church Babylon and other things like that. That's not the church. God has a church. That is not the church. God has a church. It's not the great cathedral. It's not the national establishment. It's not the various denominations. It is the people. It is his people who have the Spirit, the presence of God dwelling in them, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ, which is the spirit of prophecy. And they have it inside of them, not in a book written on the wall, not just in letter, but inside of their hearts. God's people have that. And that's his true church. And it's the building. It's built without hands. It's not built with hammers, bricks, and nails that you can see on the street. It has a sign saying Seventh-day Adventist Church on it. It's a building built without hands that he dwells inside, and he sits in the temple and sits inside of his temple. Anyway, lots of things I gave you here. And these are all quotes from Ellen White. I'm quoting her. Like, I know I'm speaking very similar to what she said, but some of the quotes from Ellen White, I'm not just quoting her. I'm also giving you stuff from the Bible. If you know your Bible, you probably hear in a verse every second word. You're hearing different verses all from the Bible. And I'm just putting them together and sharing with you. This is the truth for this time. God wants you to know the truth so that you can stand in the day of the Lord. And he wants you to be occupied with present truth. And as you go from here, go and put all these things together for yourself. Ask me for the PowerPoint, and then go and study the word and see. Search the king of the north in the Bible. Search flee out of Judea. Search the time of trouble. Search all these words and start studying them. Study the chapters and see what it says in regards to these things and how all these things line up, so that you know when you see and understand the personation of Christ, you're going to see and understand it. You're going to be like, okay, I get it now. It's nothing. It's not just like, Satan, like, I understand Satan personates Christ as a crowning act, but you're not going to know it's Satan just because, like it's just not going to be like somebody who's got long hair and looking like Jesus and stuff like that. And wearing a white robe and shining and everything like that. It's going to be more deceptive than that. It's going to be about the words that he speaks are going to be powerful to the point where they might even be, professing Seventh-day Adventists. Many false Christs shall come. That's what she said. Many false Christs should come. And that's the crowning act. It's deeper. Anyway, I know I'm sharing a lot of things with you. There's a lot of things here that we need to get an understanding of. We need to understand what it means to be at his steps, that we're going to be begging at his steps for money and food. And God's people are to understand and know these things for the last day. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a good quote there. The Bible is found in the first 5 books. The first 5 books. Okay, is everything found in the first 5 books? You just need to look at the meaning in the first 5 books and apply the principle. Yes, absolutely. You will find principles of everything in the first 5 books. It doesn't matter whether it's Laodicea being spewed out. It tells you why she spewed out in those books. It tells you all these things. It tells you why the woman is burnt with fire in ancient Babylon. And all the principles, all the things are there and laid out in the law of Moses with the prophets. They're all there. The prophets expound more on what's in those first 5 books. But yes, those first 5 books have all the principles with respect to God's way of living. And if we diligently hearken to those statutes, God will bring none of these diseases upon us, what he brought upon the Egyptians. We'll discern, we'll understand what's coming to pass right now. And we'll just, and this is something that I've been thinking about that's been hitting my heart. I'm like, do I need a cell phone? And I'm trying to figure out a way and a reason why I don't need a cell phone. Because, I know there's a lot of things with respect to that cell phone that it's a tracking device. And not only that, but what are they going to use to kill us all with? I mean, and I understand that there's other ways. Like if you're in the bush or something like that, and you're carrying this with you, where can they send their little AI little bumblebee with a machine gun on it or whatever they want to do? They'll just send it right at you. I don't think that I'm honestly thinking that there might be something to this, that God may want us to dispose of the cell phone. And I think that time is coming, actually. And it's not just because of killer bots. I think that there's other reasons. I'm not just saying, like, I'm thinking of my cell phone. I haven't thought about my computer yet. My computer, I think, is a little different than a cell phone. I'm thinking of ways in which God would have us communicate, not using that. Like, you're going to need, this is what they're saying with regards to this new system. I could share it all, but there's 3 things you need. He says that you need a cell phone, a bank account, and digital ID. I can't remember what the third thing was, but those are the 3 things they're saying that are all part of this new system. And do I want my driver's license on my cell phone? I don't know. Maybe I'll just, when I go to the driver's license place, I can say I don't have a cell phone. Anyway, I don't have a cell phone. What do you want me to do? I'm not part of this. I don't want a cell phone. They've got, and not just that, the radiation that comes off of them and all kinds of things. I don't know. I'm not saying for everybody to do this or nothing like that. This is not a law, but I've just been thinking about it. This is something that I'm kind of thinking that God is bringing this to my mind, my heart, and I could be wrong on that one. I'm going to let that one sink in a little bit, and I'm just still praying about it, So, that's not like not preaching it. iPhone. I was going to do a message though on the iPhone. Why iPhones are bad. And they are with the little Apple and the whole Adam and Eve scenario and everything like that. And you go to buy the apps, you have to buy the eSword on an iPhone. You have to buy things on iPhone. Like iPhone is, anyways. I've always thought that iPhone was the worst of the two, but Android is bad too. Yeah. Yeah. We're going into a time where we're going to have to flee and leave some stuff behind. Maybe we don't want to have this stuff sometime. Maybe we want to learn to live life without it. Just saying, because those things are our babies sometimes. I mean, come on, don't speak against my little phone, eh? Right? I'm going to get in trouble here again, Yeah, anyway. Just sharing with you guys. Stone Age. Hey, it feels like the Stone Age, but it wasn't really that long ago, right? How many years back was it that you didn't have a cell phone? I mean, I think I was probably 20 something when I got my first cell phone. I lived without a cell phone. We used to use maps. We didn't have GPSs. It wasn't very long ago. We were using maps to track around the city, and I mean, that was when we were like, I was in my 20s. I didn't use a GPS. It wasn't very long ago, so we can do it. I mean, we've done it. So I'm trying to think of that was life before that, but it is convenient, right? It does give a lot of conveniences. So it's definitely a tough one, It's a tough one to give up. Maybe there's something you can get that's a GPS that you can use contrary to and without your cell phone. We've gotten used to using our cell phone. But anyway, electronic GPS, is that so bad? I'm not going to go there. I would say electronic GPS might be better than a cell phone. Maybe that's a way, it's kind of a for now kind of answer. But anyway, that I'm pondering on this. That's all I'm doing. I'm just giving my thoughts on this. I'm kind of thinking about it, ditching my cell phone. Yeah, map and compass, right? Back to the ways, right? And the stars and the sun, moon, stars. Get outside, right? All right, guys. Just a lot to pray about. Pray about it. Think maybe God will give you more light than I have on it. Anyway, lots of things to consider here today. I know I've been going for a few hours, so we've hopefully got a lot to ponder and get into the word. I hope this just inspires you to get into the word more and to know and understand. Like, who knows, could they say collection time is in June and we're collecting the debts now? And you know what? You're going to be, you own nothing. We own everything. Could that be the time where the Great Reset they reset the economy and everything else? Yeah, that's a good one. We had roadmaps. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we will see you guys later. Let's have a prayer before we go. Father in heaven, we just want to thank you for being with us again today. And we pray for your Holy Spirit to be with us as we leave this meeting, as we enter into another week. We pray, Father, that you would be with us for the rest of the Sabbath. It's just such a beautiful day with so much more to happen here with your time, your appointed time. And to know you better, to hear your voice clearly, and to really just let you speak to our hearts and our minds. Let us be clear in your word and hearing your voice so that we can discern the signs of the times. And I pray that you're with everyone here this Sabbath that's here, and just guide them into truth, and let us be of one accord and one mind together, and work on ways together that we can share the messages and get the messages out to more people before the time of probation comes and closes. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. Love you all. Love you all. And, God be with you, and may help you in whatever it is. And you know what? if you need to talk or whatever, dbaron@gmx.com. Email me if you want to. If you got questions or whatever, you want to talk privately, you have a personal issue with me or whatever, let's solve it. Let's settle it. And yeah, I'm not against any of you. So, I'm against teachings that are lies, as some of you might know. And sometimes we've accepted lies. And, if you feel like what you're teaching is the truth and you really want to talk to me about it and you think that, I could be helped, and you believe that, and then, or whatever, and you really want to talk to me, then, hey, let's get together and we'll discuss it. We'll study it. We'll be reasonable. Oh yeah.
I think Brother James would like to speak. He had his hand up for a while back.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no hand up.
He had his hand up.
Okay, is James Spitfire?
Spitfire, yeah.
Okay, because we had an issue earlier when he was trying to grab the room. I hope this is the right James, right? I haven't checked or nothing, but
yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
Hey, David, thanks for the good sermon today. I appreciate it on the Sabbath day.
Yeah, sorry about that earlier. I wasn't sure. Was it you that was doing that, trying to get control of the board, or was that just an accident? Or
No, I was in two rooms, and I was
Oh.
trying to see if I could mute you and keep your presentation going while I listen to another. There's a camp meeting going on in Tennessee. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's going to be a pastor speaking at 7 Central time, 7 Central on it's called Smyrna Gospel Ministries, and you just have to click onto their live stream and you can get in at 7 o'clock Central time.
Yeah, I'm aware of their.
You know that ministry in Tennessee?
Yeah, I've been there. I know Alan very well.
Yeah,
And,
he was speaking earlier today.
I've talked to him many times. I mean,
are you good with him?
I've studied all his studies. What's that?
You're good with him, right?
Yeah, no, I like Alan. I really do like Alan a lot. And
he's
Alan
fabulous.
and Daniel are there. I know Alan and Daniel Mason, but there's only one thing that you obviously know, that they don't want to associate with me because of, right?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that, David.
Oh no, yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
But they do like me. They do like me.
I thought there was some disagreements, trying to be of one mind, but I didn't know they had any kind of anger towards
and
you.
I will say this is the thing, they have truths, they have truths, and but as far as present truths, I mean, I think that there's still some stuff missing. It would be awesome to come together and be able.
I think it's important.
Sadly,
everybody's saying it, but you got to do it. You got to walk that fine line, that narrow path. You got to do it. You got to put away self once in a while.
Sadly, they have come against some of the things that I've shared with regards to that. And I'm not going to say that they've come out harshly or nothing like that. These guys, like, there's some other ministers in the Truth About God movement that have come out very, very harshly,
No, it's true that it gets twisted. Things get twisted, David. You know that. You know that things get twisted. I just hope that, I always pray that you, Alan Stone, and Pastor Daniel Mesa will all come together in one mind. But and Nader too. But there are some differences.
We're real far off with that.
Yeah, there's differences.
They're like, I'm almost thinking that they're almost ready to keep Sunday.
Nah, that can't be. I just wanted to.
If you understand their teaching, I understand their teachings, and they are definitely close to it.
I just wanted to speak on.
I
think it was Sister Lois was talking about that 1 hour when the kings will receive the power from the beast for an hour, the kings and everything. And that reminds me a lot about the first 2 chapters of Job. When Satan goes up to heaven to talk with all the holy folks up in heaven with God. And he says, I I can't get to
Right.
Job because you built a fence around him. I can't touch him.
Yeah.
And so in one day, after God says you can touch his things, but you can't touch him, he goes after everything Job has in one day.
Yeah.
And then in chapter 2, it talks about Satan getting permission, saying he can touch Job, but he can't kill him. And in one day, he brings all kinds of pressure against Job and really tests him hard. You know the book.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of that 1 hour when the kings of the earth have that 1 hour with the beast. God knows God will have his people sealed, and he will protect his children. And so I see the 7 last plagues, that hour of time is going to come fast.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the book of Job. In days, he brought all that upon Job, Satan. He brought all that force against him in days, just a couple of days. And God knows how Satan works. I would ask you for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, it's just going to be a short space. It's not going to be long, and it's going to be destruction. People are going to see a lot of that. Goran Suslich, I'm not too sure about that name though. I mean, and this, I just say this. I mean, this is not to add any kind of fuel to any kind of fire or nothing like that, right? Like I don't know. Some of you might know that a lot of these Truth About God leaders were around like 15, 20 years ago, whatever it is that I've been a Truth About God believer. They've been around. And some of these people were associated together. David Clayton, Natter, Ahmad, and Alan Stump, they've all split into a million smithereens, right?
Yeah.
And the reason that they have is because Natter and Ahmad have obviously come against many things, same with David Clayton, against many things in the spirit of prophecy. And Alan Stump is definitely upholding the spirit of prophecy for the most part. So anyways, Natter and Ahmad also came against Daniel Mesa and other things because of his teachings on, what he says about the angels and other things like that. So they don't associate together anymore. And with regards to and I believe Daniel Mesa is more right than Natter and Ahmad on that issue too.
Yeah, I do agree on that.
Yeah. And because I mean I shared it with I shared it with Daniel Mesa. I was at one point in time not knowing that Daniel Mesa was going to go and teach this stuff. I actually shared it with him in Terabella. We had a meeting in a room in Terabella, California, and Daniel Mesa came over, and I did a whole thing on the whiteboard with Daniel sitting there with 3 of the ministers from what was the name of that ministry that they had before?
The one in
yeah, it was Dustin, Daniel, and somebody else, Dustin. But I'm good friends with Dustin's brother, right? So
they all went after Daniel, David. They all went after Daniel.
Yeah.
You know that.
PHM, right? PHM. So I had a meeting. I shared with them about the angels, and I shared, basically the Revelation and the Book of John, and about the angels and their ministry and stuff like that. And Daniel found a bunch of quotes from Ellen White afterwards. So I guess he had he went into a depth on that, but I mean, I never talked to him about it after that, but he started sharing about that. And I'm not like, I definitely don't believe what Natter and Ahmad are sharing with regards to Christ being in you literally and physically. I believe that's pantheism. And
that's like Kellogg.
Yeah. And it is definitely not a teaching that is from God. It's just,
that's where I lose Nader right there.
Yeah. And so it's a big deception because most people are just coming into the Truth About God movement. And these are the guys that they go to, because a lot of people just go to listen to these people. Ellen White has lots of stuff against that, what they said. And I have tons of stuff gathered up. But with regards to it, I mean, man, people don't discern it because they're so new, right? Like, and they're just listening every week. They're not studying for themselves. Lots of people are realizing it later on. And people come and say, well, what about this? What about this? And they start to question these guys. And these guys are not open to questions for the most part. But you can't really get far. I've tried to reach out to Nader on numerous occasions, and he's not open to having any
I
discussion.
know. I talk with Brother Vern about, this quite often because he has a group on Sabbath evening, and we're in the book of Ezekiel right now. It's just an amazing book.
Yeah.
And he has brought light to the troubles, just as you do with the one true God movement. And it's a tough road, it's a tough road. And I just hope that, you and Alan Stump and Daniel Mesa can maybe work out a few things, in a humble way, and put God first. But, there are some lines that you just, in your own mind, your own heart, you don't want to cross. You draw the line in the sand, so to speak, And I was trying to get in when someone asked a question about that hour of time. And I just wanted to, bring up how quickly Satan moved on Job in the first few chapters of that. He moved on him in one day.
Yeah.
Actually, like 2 days, he was all over him in 2 days. And I think God is a merciful God. If you are keeping his commandments, you are repenting, and you are serving him, doing the things that pleases him, he will protect you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking the narrow and straight path, he will be there for you. And he knows that Satan will bring, just like it says, a time such as never was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I appreciate that there, brother. And just a couple thoughts I was going to just finish off with. I actually, just so you know, I actually was at a camp meeting with PHM and with Alan Stump. I think it was about 3 years ago, just before the pandemic. It was in Tennessee. They had this this house, right? And there was only about 10 or 15 people there and stuff, and they invited me to come. And it was a blessing. We had a blessed time together. I would say that in regards to a lot of stuff that they share, it's really good. But I would also say this, okay? Because this is what our people need to be doing, is we need to be fluent in the truth and not trying to force it, because they're going to talk about it, but they come against the feast sometimes, okay? And God's appointed times. And so as God's people, we should understand that God has appointed times for his people. I mean,
I agree. It fits the monthly moons, the new moons, and the fruit of life. It fits right in there. More. The context is all there, and it doesn't end. It's in the whole Bible,
Right. But
do you think it's salvational, David?
But
keeping
from this, let me just say, you're going to miss out on present truth, because it's appointed times that are meant to come together so that we can learn more about Jesus. And I understand, I'm not going to say it's salvational to everyone, but it will be salvational to some people. It's because people are going to miss out on what they could have known at these appointed times. Okay.
It's the truth. It's the present truth.
When we come together at the appointed times, how much of a blessing do you guys find when you come together, like on the feast day? Say we came together for the Passover, right? When we came together on the Passover, we did some meetings on the Passover, and I believe that God has like a special truth at these times. He just like I know
he sends the comforter,
and the words
he sends
that are
the comforter, right, David?
And I noticed that the Spirit, the words that are spoken, like it's just like light, and it just opens more to God's word that you can see and understand with regards to present truth. Like I was talking about Ezekiel 9 and the sealing and all that stuff, and now it all connected with regards to the feast. And so, when we miss out on these appointed times, what can we miss out on? Large outpourings of present truth, large outpourings of the latter rain. And so it is a potential to be salvational.
Salvational?
Yes. Right.
Wow. Okay. I kind of didn't think feasts were salvational. But I can't ignore Passover. I can't ignore the trumpets. I can't ignore those feasts.
Yeah. Let me just say a little bit more though, just so I'm clear. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say that Sunday keepers have not come to the light of Sabbath, but they're doing Sabbath in their hearts, and they understand that they don't understand, right? the difference of the truth. So if they're keeping Sabbath according to what they understand and they're doing everything that they know righteous, is God going to judge them because they didn't get the light on the Sabbath or they didn't keep the 7th-day Sabbath?
He judges them according to what they know, their knowledge.
So it might not be salvational to some people, the Sabbath. You understand?
Wow. Yeah. Nah, he has many flocks. Jesus has many
Right.
flocks.
So the same thing is true with the feast days. Like you miss out on something, lots of people, the Sabbath is definitely going to be salvational, right? Look at what it says in
For me, it is.
Look at what it says in the book of Zechariah 14. It says, those who don't come up to the Feast of Tabernacles will receive the plagues.
There it is. That's an important feast.
Is that salvational?
Yes.
Right. You're going to be lost. That's what it says, right?
Yes. Yes.
So this is the point. Yeah. And Sabbath, the doors open. Yeah. The blessings, right? It's just, this is God's appointed time. He opens the doors on the Sabbaths and new moons. These are appointed times for God to give us large outpourings of his Holy Spirit.
I thank you again for another wonderful presentation, and thanks for the light. Thanks for the light, David. Blessings.
Yeah, brother. Just keep studying though. Keep studying those things, and get very, very fluent in those things and understanding, because especially you're going to be asked questions. Why do you keep the Sabbath? You need to give an answer as to why you keep the Sabbath, why you keep the new moons, or why do you keep the feasts, or what's, give an answer and then just explain, well, this is what God has. This is why God's, and the reason you want to explain it is to defend God's word and God's truth, because people come against these things, and these things were given by God himself. So when you come against something that God gave, you're coming against God himself. It's a big deal. You want to come against the feast? Well, you're coming against God himself. He gave these things, right? Like, oh, these feasts are so bad. Well, who gave them? God. So what does that mean about God? God's bad, right? These feasts are such a burden. Oh, God just gave the Israelites a burden? Is that what it was? He's just, God was a burden, a taskmaster, a hard taskmaster. Is that what God is? Is that how you view God? That's a character of God issue too, right? So these are just things that just are going over people's heads when they're actually discussing this topic and other topics, of course. But these are things that should be thought about, because, if you don't catch what your argument is leading you to, then you'll be missing out, right? You'll be missing out. Why is it time to feast during the antitypical Day of Atonement? All festivals, it should be a fast and reverence as a great memorial, because the great feast will be in the near future for this. Yeah. So the Day of Atonement, right, is a fast. Yeah, it's not exactly a feast. And it antitypical, well, people say, well, it was antitypical after 1844. And now we're in the type, or now we're in the reality of it. And so what does that mean to people? Some people think that, like, before 1844, it was okay to keep the Day of Atonement, the type. It was okay to keep the type, but not the antitype. Like that was what it was. And now suddenly it's not okay to keep the type, and it's okay to keep the antitype. It's not what God was saying. I mean, was feast keeping up until 1844? Is that what you're trying to say? Are you thinking through your argument that 1844 means that, like, 1843 we were to keep the Day of Atonement? Is that what it meant? Because you're telling us that 31 AD was nailed to the cross, right? There's a whole bunch of issues that people have with their arguing and stuff. We're gonna be entering it, like the Passover. If you think about the Passover, there's still an antitype, or a type, another symbol that's going to be fulfilled at the end, when the angel passes over those who have the mark in their foreheads, right? There's another Passover to come. So there's Passover, and then Jesus said, I will not keep this Passover with you till I keep it in the kingdom of God. So these are shadows or symbols or types, typical of things that are going to come to pass. But when we keep the Passover in the kingdom of God, Does that mean we can't keep the antitype at the same time? It's another thing. Ellen White talks about type and antitype. She says the tree of life was a type of the life of Christ in the soul. So the antitype is receiving the Holy Spirit. Does that mean you can't keep the tree of life and eat from the tree of life after you receive the Holy Spirit? You know, you can't keep the type at the same time as the antitype. That's an argument I often hear, right? But think about that. The tree of life was a type of the life of Christ in the soul. The foot washing, Ellen White said, was a type of a higher cleansing. Foot washing is a type. And if you receive that higher cleansing and God cleanses you of all sin, baptism is a type. Does that mean that you can't do the have the type anymore? You can't do the foot washing anymore? There's lots of things like that. I mean, it's the reasoning that is coming from a lot of these ministers. I understand it, but I understand it's flawed. It's flawed reasoning. It's not well thought out. And it's, you know, as God's people, we need to have arguments that are basically infallible arguments. They're God's arguments. We want God's arguments against these things, if they're against them or for them. You know, we don't want arguments that can be torn apart and dissected and destroyed in like a minute. We want arguments that are going to bear a good, solid investigation. Anyway, guys, yeah, I've been going for 3.5 hours today. It's a beautiful day. Let's go get some sunshine. Let's just enjoy God's creation here. All right, I'm going to close up. So we will see you again next time. And may God be with you all as you leave this meeting. Yeah, no problem, Brother James. God bless you, brother. Yeah, there's not much sunshine here either. But there's a little bit coming through the clouds. I'll enjoy it. All right, guys. We'll be with you next time. We'll see you next time, okay? Have a blessed Sabbath.